Good evening, fans. Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. Bear with me a wee second. Right, we're here. Okay, so we're waiting Gav coming in. We're going to put a discussion on impressions and some other words and understanding of words and language. But before I even get there, just the usual formats and then a couple other wee points. I'm going to highlight some sophism yet again and some blatant misrepresentation. And this time it's not from somebody who's professing to be a Globe disciple. This time it's our good old friend Miss Clavage, misread. So for anybody new, again, this platform is an open platform, mainly on a Saturday night, for people to come in and let us know they're there and express the journey they're having in regards to the realisation that you do not live on the exterior of a spinning blue testicle, suspended in the vacuum of space, being dragged about by the sun. The people here do not believe that we live on cartoons. The people here believe in real natural science, measurable, testable, repeatable. And we know that we exist on a level plane. Whatever the full dimensions are, whatever the container is of that level plane is unbeknownst to any of us. We are desperate to find that out. We need as many people awake to it as possible, and we need people critical and discerning so that we have a better opportunity and a better chance of actually finding out what the actual truth of this reality is. So, flat earth. If you're new again here, you know, I decide, me, when I say flat earth, you have to ask me, what I mean by flat earth. You don't get to label me with some straw man or your interpretation of what flat earth means. It simply means it's not a globe, it is a level plane, and we can prove that beyond any shadow of a doubt, that you live in a contained, pressurised system. You will know that you live in a contained, pressurised system if you go and understand basic physics, understand how you create pressure, understand how water behaves and how it will never conform to the exterior of any shape. It will take the shape of its container. End of story. That's a fact of reality. Which brings me on to the next part of sophism. Now, there is a YouTube user called Orphan Red who tried to, you know, give me some spiel in a comment thread regarding water conforming to the exterior of shapes, telling me that it's ridiculous to say that because water does conform to the exterior of shapes and she can show us. Right? So what this person is going on about is ferrofluid. Ferrofluid is an oil with iron filings in it, and it will react to a magnet. Okay, so I'm going to screen share just to give you a quick example, and then I'm going to explain why it's sophism and it's misrepresenting the actual claim, which for anybody with any kind of critical, discerning mind would know the blatantly obvious, right? But I'll point it out in a minute. So before I come to chat, I'm just going to share this quickly. So let me just get my screen share. Marshall, see you there. How you doing, mate?
Well, I need to answer that.
Oh, you've got a funky background again.
It's my new wallpaper too.
Oh, nice.
I've done it the whole house, innit?
You must be walking about confused.
It's the only thing that's keeping me sane at the moment, man.
Right, just bear with me. I do this screen share here. So what this person was talking about was, oh, bodies of water do conform to the exterior of shapes because ferrofluids, yeah. So let me see, screen share. Application window. I don't want to be showing that, just wait a minute. Application window. Share. No, what's going on? Cancel. Try that again. Marshall, what are we seeing?
We're seeing ferrofluid test magnetic liquid.
Okay, so this is what they were referring to, and I'll just turn the sound in. There's absolutely no requirement to hear this. So as I say, this is an oil with iron filings in it, reacting to a magnet. Right, so very pretty, very interesting to look at. I'm just going to skip it forward. Yeah. So, oh, and look at this. Let's see how it reacts in a jar of contained water with a surface that is level, parallel, flat. Right. So it's very interesting that you know, to see this and watch it. It's mesmerising. So this is pretty much what they're going on about. And this is this clown, this absolute numpty's claim that water does indeed conform to the exterior of shapes. Okay, right, I'm going to stop screen sharing here. Stop sharing. And we should be back. Okay, so the blatantly obvious is the oceans and the waters and lochs and lakes and rivers are not oil containing iron filings, right? Again, it's part of the sophism. Now, to hear somebody who's professing to be, you know, questioning the globe and thinks that it's flat, to repeat this fucking absolute absurdity is beyond me, okay? The oceans are water, just like this, only with salt in it, and maybe a few other bits and bobs, right? Sophism, misrepresenting the claims. Nobody is claiming that the earth is an oil, covered with oil and iron filings within it. Right? Nobody I know. So this is what they do, okay? They take your words and they try and play upon it. If you say bodies of water do not conform to the exterior of shapes, water will not display shapes upon its surface, it's an impossibility. They will then use that. They will then use sophist tactics to try and put an image in people's minds that it can happen, but hoping that people are not clever enough to discern and say, well, hang on now, that's not accurate to the actual claim you're making. The claim that's being made is that rivers, lakes, oceans are conforming to the exterior of a shape and displaying convexity upon the surface. Right? So we're interested in how water behaves. Not the oil and the iron filings next to a magnet, right? So again, and it's the same when they give you this, look how it behaves in the ISS, look how a raindrop behaves, look how a drip on a penny behaves. They always misrepresent, and it's part of their sophist tactics. The reason they do it is just to try and give an image, an impression in your mind that that's what reality is. So if they make this claim and you're saying, well, how can an ocean bend around a globe? They'll go, oh, look at my fancy trick. Just to try and get you to accept it. Right? Clever people are not going to accept that bollocks. Right? And you should be very wary of these fucking charlatans and people who claim to be intellectual and clever and bright, but yet still persist with this utter fucking lunacy. Okay? So. By the way, I found somebody sent me videos of this very same person who has another channel called Orphan Blue, who thinks that she can give sexual tips to people. Now, one of these videos was put mouthwash on your testicles if you want a blowjob. I'm surprised they're not bringing that forward and saying, see, water does conform to balls. My balls are minty fresh. Look at the minty fresh liquid stuck to my balls. I don't know where the fuck these people come from. I really have no fucking idea. But they are confused fucking individuals. Well, I say confused. These characters certainly ain't confused because they know what they're up to. They are actively, you know, employing sophist tactics and talking utter shit. Agents there to try and confuse and keep people in bewilderment yet again, right? And it's happening, it's everywhere, it's rife within this. This platform does not affiliate or have any political, religious or racial stance. This question is about objective reality, purely for science, end of story. I'm not interested in any other topic being attached to it, or anybody promoting anybody who does attach other topics to it, because there's absolutely no need for it. This is a topic that is, you know, in everybody's direct experience. There is no need to attach taboos or any other, you know, problematic topic to this. Keep it simple. If people can realise that without any of the shit getting in the way of it, people will realise it quicker, right? And if they do realise it, all the other nonsense will start to fall into place for them. Okay. So many game players appearing now. You know, there's a hijacking activism, there's a hijacking of people appearing from nowhere, acting like they're activists and organising meets left, right and centre. And it's a bit of a concern for me, to be honest with you, because I don't know who these people are or where they're taking it, right? I don't affiliate with them. And if, again, I'm going to repeat this, if you have people who are discussing the likes of myself, and I'm not there and I'm not aware of it, I would appreciate you letting me know. If people are coming and talking in little bitch circles, you should put them at a peep right away. Tell them you're not accepting it, okay? And highlight them. We're supposed to be moving on from these low-level fucking mind games, right? It's time for it to end. There's enough fucking hassle happened in this life, you know, this world. Anyway, thank you. So, chat box. So we're waiting on Gav. Gav is going to come in and we're going to have some more discussions. So right now we'll go to the chat and see how you're all doing. Scouse Anarchist, how are you? Open my eyes, picking Paul. My balls are more oblate. Del Croy, straight out of Central Casting. San Ingen laughing my ass off. Mouthwash, that would fucking hurt. Yep. No, maybe she just has a real beef with men and hoping that the gullible, insecure, idiotic men that will listen to her will go ahead and do it. You know? Go and get some Listerine, pour it on your penis and your balls and you'll get a blowjob. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these people? You know? William Careen, how are you? Chelster Deluxe, how you doing? Jamie Brown, YouTube. They have had such a good run as well, bullshitting for 2 years straight. Yeah, well, they certainly have, mate. Yeah, I've sat and watched it, you know, and it's only a matter of time before you give every one of them enough rope and they will become blatantly obvious, you know, as they should be to the majority of people already, right? Wake the sheeple, that would burn like a bitch. Screw that, because I like my balls just how they are. Johnny Groover, my balls are egg-shaped. Kieran McCrory, how you doing? Rob Redding, that's right there, let's keep laughing at them. Exactly, let's ridicule it. Let's ridicule the globe and ridicule these characters who persist. And I guarantee you they are sociopathic, narcissistic types of personalities. They will not like ridicule. They hate being ridiculed, they hate being laughed at. But they have given enough of us a hard time over the last 2 years that it's time the tables were turned. Okay, so the globe for me, it's not even credible to have a discussion over with any kind of sincerity or any of that stuff. It is a cartoon. There is no real model. It's a plastic toy. Okay, kiddies and their plastic toys are not credible. They don't deserve any kind of serious attention. It's only there to be laughed at, right? And again, so are these characters. And we need to have that attitude now. We need to stop pandering to their games and play, oh, you should be this way, and don't get angry, and don't do this, and don't get angry. Fuck every one of them. Laugh like fuck. Ridicule and laughter is the best method. Okay? And people who are secure don't mind ridicule, don't mind a bit of banter, taking the piss out of themselves, right? Because you should have the ability to laugh at yourself. If you have that ability and you know yourself better than anybody, you know your points, if you are aware of that and you accept them and you laugh about it, There's nothing that anybody can ever say that's going to affect you. Right? These clowns don't get that though, because they're weak, right, and very insecure. I try and have compassion for them. You know, I really do, and I extend my compassion to those that I feel are deserving of compassion. But these clowns just don't. Right? They deserve to be ridiculed and laughed at until they learn to stop playing their fucking silly childish games and start toeing the line and come to the people who want to understand and know exactly where they are. Right? As I laugh, and there's funny aspects, but when I see the situation here, okay. Mary at Sea Level, this show is getting straight to the balls. Yep, straight in there. Chrissy's, how you doing? Home for Truth. Twitwit. Master Bevs. Vigo Stockholm. Millennium. Beyond Belief. Colsha Cats, how you doing? Freedom Awaits. Russell Jimmy's, how are you? Can we send Dale to the centre of the earth to figure out what's being hidden? It's funny that I was having a conversation, well, not conversation. I had some activism today. Today I was outside Renfrewshire Council building with the Alien, and I spoke to many walks of life. And I've got it up here ready. Once I'm finished broadcasting the live, I will set it to public. It's now set at unlisted. And again, it was great. It was really eye-opening again. The amount of people, you know, in different kind of walks of life who are aware of this topic is absolutely incredible. So the activism has worked, you know, amazingly. You know, it really has out there, and there's people, you know, are hearing about it left, right, and centre. So it's fantastic. You know, there are a couple of people who, as you'll see, were still about, oh, it's a global. But the majority of people are saying, look, now we know they've been lying to us, you know, the moon landing's bollocks, you know, I'm not surprised that they would be lying about this. So it's really encouraging to see, you know, and I was really taken aback by the amount of people who'd already heard about it. You know, and this is outside the council building, and I'm going to persist with the council building because, as I say, you get so much traffic in and out of there, you know, not just the public, you get workers, you know, council workers who are coming in and out, and a few of them had stopped to look. And again, you know, it gets in there and they will go to work and they'll discuss it amongst themselves, and it just gets it more widespread. So it's fantastic, and everybody who's taking part in any activism, you know, keep it up. And it really has worked. It really does make a difference. Again, testament to it. Don't listen to these detractors who tell you, oh, don't do activism. That's just not going to work. That's not right. No, we should stay on YouTube and listen to personalities and celebrities who are going to sort it out for us. Oh, never mind fucking YouTube or any other fucking social media. You know, out there in reality is where it's at. You know, and if you go there, you will see that people are already aware of this question. So it's just a matter of keeping the pressure on. Let's get, you know, council, academics, everybody pressurised into dealing with this. And again, it's not about pointing the finger and hanging anybody in the street, or no, you know, taking violence to them or any of these things. It's purely a scientific question, and people have every right to question the reality that they're living in. Right? And these people in these positions better start representing the people or get the fuck out of the way. Okay, it's as simple as that. That's the only options they have. They stand with the people, right, or they fucking move. Reptilian overlords, you a wee ball baggy. The ribbon was on Sunday. What a joke, you can rib away all you like. Bald chinny and big fucking nose. You know, women want to sit in my face because my nose is bigger than my dick. Tony Camps, we need to start kicking some fucking ass, and now, well, it's already happening, Tony, as I say, you know, it really is out there, and it's great to see it. West Coast Wisdom, how are you? Wake the Sheeple. Chelster Deluxe, One Man and His Detector. Grey Mears, how are you? Del Croy, Scouse Anarchist, Flatalica, Unearther. Nice to see so many is here again. Oh, it's jumped. Dan Tibbets, Easty Beastie, thumbs up for Dale. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Easty Beastie. Dan W, Beyond Belief, Peter Wills. Carbon Chaos, do you have any views on the NASA channel? Well, like I always say, you know, there's people with ego problems, there's people with different goals and agendas. My agenda here is purely to establish the truth. I'm not interested in ego or personality or, you know, being a celebrity, any of these fucking things. My whole goal is to get, you know, this pushed as a scientific question and endeavour. I'm not interested in these people who claim, I'm the first and I'm the leader and meh, all that fucking shit. But at the same time, it's annoying because many of these people have something really credible to say. They have a lot of good points to make and things to offer people. So, you know, each to their own. You have to be discerning wherever you go, especially on social media. Remember what the question is and, you know, what you need, the tools you need for it. It's natural science. It's about objective reality. End of story. Okay, now it's good that we have so many different characters and personalities because they will appeal to the many different characters and personalities out there. The problem comes is when they start believing their own fucking hype. They start believing in their own fucking ego, thinking they're saviors, you know, they're leaders and all this crap. Right, that's what the problem is for me. So, anyway, Gav, how are you? You're on.
All right, good, man. You hear me?
Right. Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Feels kind of slow tonight, the internet. Why? Might just be me.
Yeah,
all right. Have you already said everything that needs to be said? Huh?
Yeah, that's us, mate. Let's get into it. So, I don't know if you want to go, you know, just if there's new people, I spoke to some people today and, you know, they said they were going to tune in and stuff. So, I don't know if you want to just refresh people's memories and who you are and, you know, why you're here.
Aye, sure. Name's Gavin. Studied maths and physics quite a long time ago. 52 years old now. Took me a while to realise the globe lie. But yeah, I'm a proud ex-cult member and looking to help other people find their way out. So, yeah.
Excellent.
And this is the best place to do it because it's one of the only channels that makes any fucking sense at all. So,
apart from when we're talking about putting Listerine on your balls and stuff like that.
yeah, it's fair. When you start to talk about sex, then you know I'll just have to shut off. Huh? I'm way past that, you know. Yeah, you were out interviewing today?
Aye, I went to the council offices today, flunked the alien there and made a bit of a scene. So there was plenty of traffic and plenty of tension at it. So as I say, I've got the first part is there ready to go once we finish the live, you know. So
excellent.
Aye, and as I say, there was the amount of people that I spoke to, it was incredible who'd already heard about this. You know?
It's just more and more, isn't it? It's definitely it's outweighing the people who haven't heard it, you know. So
yeah,
that's an excellent thing. The main thing is that they now learn to discern properly through all the shite that's now out there, right?
That's it, mate. Yeah, and that's what we're about, you know, especially tonight as well. So if you want to take it on,
go for it. Aye, give another wee presentation, and then we discuss it afterwards. Eh?
Cool.
Right. Hey, hi, Marshall. All good for you?
Hi, Gav. Yeah. Well, you know how it goes here, mate.
I like
fair and nearly middling, you know. Yeah, sorry, dude. I'm a little bit distracted by what's going on in the chat. We got some itchy fans in here this evening that are hell bent on being a little bit disruptive. Boys, you ain't going to last very long. That's my bit said. Sorry, Gav, I interrupted you there, mate. But
no bother. Just say hello to everybody. Hi, everybody. Let me just share my screen then, and we can get it started. Hold on. Let me know when everybody can see that.
Yeah. I'm just going to click you so that when I speak, it doesn't keep chopping back, or if I make a noise, I don't, mate.
Yeah, okay, cool.
That should be it stuck on you.
Aye, sound. What I thought I'd just do today is take a wee strife through some of the topics we've made and try and make some connections between words and language, and even between geometry and mathematics and realism, so that we just kind of see a big kind of round, how should I say, a round trip of all the things that, you know, play a role, at least from my point of view, in how this deception works, and how the hell we need to stop it. So this is actually something I shared the last time. You know, I mean, Dale, we've talked about this. One of the aims of this platform is to get people to come together and talk about the correct things. We're not looking for division. We don't want division. We're trying to, you know, make sure that everybody can understand where we're coming from, and agree on certain, as we talked about the last time, first principles that would allow us to move forward, right, in a constructive manner. So what I decided to do today was not to, you know, go through this stuff, but to pick out a word that I think is quite relevant to the overall topic. And it's a word that everybody's probably heard of before, called impression. And just starting from this word, move to try and describe some of the thoughts that we have, and some of the things and how the whole thing's connected. So impression, as I'm sure everybody can Google, is generally thought to be nowadays a kind of idea or a feeling or an opinion about something. You know, there's a couple of examples here about impressions of Manchester were very positive. And there's lots of synonyms like, you know, feeling and sense and fancy and intuition and hunches and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of other, you know, definitions of this word. But I think what I want to do is pull people back to what is actually the roots of this word. Where does it actually come from? You know, the etymology, as they call it, and you know, I think the most important one is this: a mark impressed on a surface, right? Which is fairly well, you know, embedded within the word itself. And what I'd like to do is just kind of step through this word, just so that people can see where the things connect. So I'll jump back to my wee mind map, and jump to the word impression. And let me just zoom into this so that people can see it. And then we'll just step through it. So even when you look at the word impression, it contains this, you know, obvious root in here called press, right? And it's important, I think, that when you make an impression on something, i.e. you press into something, then you always need a material substance, right? Which gets back to what we were talking about the last time, that you can't detach certain qualities from substances and then go ahead and talk about these qualities as if there's some kind of abstract entity that exists. Our physical reality needs substances, and you know, if we want to have practical, observable, testable, repeatable stuff, then we always need to attach it to a substance. And the word impression also has to do with substances, and that's, I think, the thing that I want to get over. So press also, you know, is the roots of the word pressure, which, as everybody knows, is the inverse proportion to volume by a constant temperature. I.e., when I, you know, apply pressure to something, then the volume's going to go down. So if I increase the pressure, the volume will go down. Or on the other hand, if I give something more volume, then the pressure will decrease, right? Assuming a constant temperature. Now, the modern definition is the absolute pressure exerted by a given mass of an ideal gas is inversely proportional to the volume it occupies if the temperature and amount of gas remains unchanged within a closed system. Now, I'd like to point out just that word closed, obviously, that will jump into your face, and the word ideal. And just let's have a wee quick look at the definitions of those things. So if I go to what is an ideal gas, then I'll also see here that it's a theoretical gas, whatever that fucking means, right? Composed of randomly moving particles in elastic conditions, collisions, right? So if I go back to Boyle's law, this is the guy that kind of put it all together at the time, and I then look hard at where the substance is in this law, right? Then you actually find it's very difficult to find, so you can see the little diagram here, hopefully, of the way things are changing with volume and the temperatures remaining constant here. And you can see that mathematically Boyle's law is stated as pressure is inversely proportional to 1 over V, or pressure times volume is a constant. Now, I can't find substance anywhere in P and V, right? So I'm assuming that there must be the substance that we're talking about must be somewhere buried in this constant K, yeah? And when you start to look a little bit closer at what that actually means, then it gets down to something called the compressibility factor, which is the deviation of a normal gas, a real gas, from this ideal gas that they postulate, yeah? So what I think I want to point out there is that even the physical laws that people learn at universities postulates things like ideal gases. Yeah, substance is somehow completely missing from this overall formula until you look very closely at things like constants. Yeah, which is there where they bury, if you like, the actual differences between the different substances that they're talking about. Yeah. And for me, that's a very telling fact, again, because, if I go back to the mind map, then, obviously pressure has something to do with impressing, i.e. the change of volume or the change of the shape of something when it gets pressed upon by some, physical force. Yeah. And yet when you go in to look at the maths and the physics, then all of a sudden the substance doesn't seem to be there, or you have to look for it very, very closely, right? And that's just one fact I want to point out, that this divorcing of the of substance from a lot of the mathematical and physical equations is very key in obfuscating the fact of this reality. And it's very easy then for people to get lost in those equations and stuff and not understand what it is we're actually talking about, right? We're trying to describe reality, and that should always be at the foreground and never hidden, yeah? Yep. If I jump into things like, to the word press, then everybody will be aware that, I can, press a bit of wax, on a bit of paper. I can stamp a coin. I can dig a hole in the ground. I've got footprints. I've got fingerprints. And all these things is when I'm applying pressure, i.e., some physical part of this reality, whether it's my body, or whether it's the earth, or whether it's a metal, or anything like that. The word impression has to do with pressing things, right? And with the pressure and with the changes in volume and surface area of substances, yeah? A lot of those things you also depend on the temperature, as we've seen, according to this law above, yeah? And for example, when you take a coin to stamp a coin, then you can maybe heat liquid or heat metal till it's molten, and then you can pour it into things to make shapes and forms, right? And again, you can see physical laws like this liquid takes the form of a container, and if it didn't, you couldn't make a stencil or a stamp or any of those things, right? Holes in the ground are probably fairly simple to understand, and footprints and fingerprints are pretty obvious. In the old days, it would have been done with ink, yeah. But and nowadays, it's being replaced by digital scanners. But my take on that, by the way, is I'd always insist on having a physical thumb present, yeah, rather than some digital image of something in the future. But obviously, that's where they're going with that whole thing, yeah. So what I think I'm trying to explain here is that impressions, when we talk about impressions, and we're talking about material impressions, right? Real substances of real things, and not only are they visible in nature with the examples that I've shown here, or in physics, they're also very much a part of your human experience, right? So that, again, we need to, when we're looking at these things, we need to look at how our mind works and how our senses work, and how, and understand how these operations function, because that's where they can confuse us, right? If we don't know how our mind works, and they can very easily, how should I say, just, pull the wool over our eyes. So, material impressions are also the things that happen in your body. Now, the obvious one is skin and touch, yeah? Where, I'd say the organ of sense is skin. What we call the whole thing touch. There's an active verb that describes what it is we're actually doing, feeling and touching. And I would classify something that is touchable as a tangible object, right? And I've kind of done the same for the other ones here: tongue, taste, tasting, tastables. I'm not sure if tastables is a word, but I quite like it. Nose, smell, smelling, and smellables. I could have taken sniffables.
Sniffables, I like that.
But I'm just trying to make a point, and the point I'm trying to move towards here is also obviously the fact that ear, sound, audio, and hearing, which we would call audible things, is again vibrations of the air, right? So, you know, this membrane tympani that we have in our ear, right, that vibrates when air hits it, is again an impression on a material substance, yeah, caused by a vibration, and that's what gives us sound, right? But at the same time, for example, a vibration of the air doesn't cause my eye, my tongue, or my nose to do anything necessarily, yeah? It's only the ear that's affected by those things, yeah? And that's also the same as when I talk about vision, or the eye, the organ of vision, the operation vision, the verb, when I say I'm seeing stuff, and what I would call visibles, which are objects of sight. And visibles is one of the things that I think anybody who knows me is that I've highlighted this for a long time, that visibles and tangibles are two different things, and we need to differentiate very carefully between those two things, yeah? A visible object or an object of sight is not the same thing as a tangible object, and that they're actually related to each other, which I'll go into in a little bit. But one of the things that we need to point out is that we don't really know why the retina is the only part of the body that actually causes vision. We're told that there's things like cones and rods, which have a certain density on the retina. So there's millions of the things or hundreds of thousands of the things. And it's this density of cones and rods that actually gives us our visual acuity. That's, if you like, the thing that gives us our visual limitations. Yeah. If light does not fall on these cones and rods, or two pieces of light fall on a cone of on rods so that they appear to be one object, then you can no longer differentiate between two different parts of an object, and then that part of the object disappears to sight, because basically you're reaching the limit of the density of the cones and rods at the back of your retina, which basically stops light being seen as two distinct things, yeah, or two distinct objects. And you know, that's there's lots of people already looked at that, and that's you know, one of the reasons why things disappear bottom up and all those kind of phenomena, which we can maybe get into in more detail. But I just want to point out that, you know, light is making a material impression on the back of your retina, just the same way that when you touch something, you're also having an impression on your physical body substance, yeah? And people shouldn't be confused by anything else. They need to see that that is the nature of reality, that their body is being affected by these impressions, yeah? One of the problems is that we don't feel it, right? We don't feel anything on our retina. You know, I couldn't actually tell you, oh, right, I felt something the same way I feel a pain in my toe, yeah, or toothache, yeah. You know, you don't actually have the same sensation, but that doesn't mean that it's not the same thing. It's just the different kind of sensation that this organ of sense brings. The organ of sense, when it has a material impression, will give you a visual experience, and a physical pressure on your body will maybe give you pain. And those are basically just the natural constitution and the way we're built. Yeah, and we just need to understand that that's the way it is. Yeah. So, for example, light can fall on my skin, right? But I don't have a visual experience when it does that. Yeah. You know, basically all these senses are very similar in many respects. They all rely on material impressions, but they all have their various differences. Yeah. And I'd just like to go into a few of them, because these differences are quite important to know. Yeah. So when a sense has its own particular law, let's call it, right, then you have an impression is made upon that organ of sense. That organ of sense then produces a sensation or a perception in your mind. And those two things are often taken to be the same, but we'll see that it's not necessarily the case. And what one sense does doesn't necessarily make an impression upon any other organ. So air doesn't bother my nose or, you know, my eye, but it will make a sound in my ear. Yeah. What are the differences? Well, one of the differences is the nature of the objects that we perceive by them. So obviously, if I'm perceiving a sound, then that's a completely different thing from something that I view or look at. Yeah. So the kind of things that we actually have perception of differ from sense to sense. But one of the most important things is also the cues that we have as regards distance and situation of that sense. Yeah. So, for example, if I hear a sound, then it doesn't necessarily mean that I know what direction that sound's coming from. In fact, generally, we'll look around when we hear a sound, trying to figure out where it came from. Yeah. When you look at an aeroplane in the sky, you'll probably look in the wrong direction first, because your hearing doesn't give you the actual bearing or the direction of a sound. So some senses do give us certain information, and other senses don't, is what I'm trying to say. But what they all have in common with each other is that they all give us perceptions of external objects, of real external objects. Yeah. And those are independent of our perception. All of our senses basically give us knowledge about external objects, and external objects that are real. Yeah. So when I hear a sound, it does come from something. Yeah. When I see an object, it's because it is an object I am seeing. Yeah. So all these things, we need to be very understanding that these are real external objects. Yeah. And the senses, when we actually go out and try to understand the distance, the figure, and the situation of objects, then some of our senses will either give us lots of detail, some detail, or no detail at all, and that depends on the individual organ that we're looking at. On the individual organ of sense that we're talking about. So, for example, I think we've already just basically said that sound, will give us definitely the perception that something external produced it. We're not sure if it's near or far away. We don't really know the direction of it. And when we look around, we're trying to find out where the hell it came from. Sight, on the other hand, will give us also the perception of an external object. It will give us its color, its apparent place, its visible magnitude and figure. But what sight doesn't do, and I'll argue this till I'm blue in the face, is it won't give you any notion of distance. You might get distance cues, but from the geometrical perspective, you have no relation to distance. That's that old problem I think we've talked about before, the size-distance invariance, where you don't really know, the sun could be 90 million miles away, or it could be just above the clouds, so to speak. Yeah. And touch is obviously probably the best one, because from that we can actually go to the object. We then understand what its relative position is to us, and so it's very precise and very determinate, exactly what it is, what this body is, where it is, and what it is in regard to us. Yeah. And when we feel a body, and when we touch a body, then we have all kinds of attributes that we can feel. Right. We know its figure, we know its distance from us, what position it's in, rough, smooth, hard, soft, hot, cold, all these things that we can do by touch. So a tangible experience is the one that brings us the most information. In form, it would be another word to look at. Yeah, it'll bring us the form of the thing. And actually, when I was out with my dog earlier on, it was quite funny. The dog saw an object in the distance, which obviously looked to him like some kind of animal. So he started to run up to it, and it turned out to be what it looked like, a bird on top of a tractor or a piece of agricultural machinery. And when the dog got to the machinery to find out it was just a bit of plastic, you could see him sniffing it with his nose. He even tried to paw at it until he convinced himself that it wasn't what he had seen, right? And then he came back looking even kind of sheepish, yeah, that he'd been taken in by this by this visible object that he didn't understand, yeah. So obviously animals have the same kind of problems that we have, yeah, is what I would take away from that. So I think, hold on, just before I lose my plot here in the thing. So I think we've looked at that. Yeah, so at the end of the day, what we have to just accept is that even if we don't understand all the different relationships and the operations of it, we can understand that that's just the way it is. And we can all agree on that these are the things that the senses convey to us, and their different operations and their differences, right? You could ask some silly questions like, how do we know that the object of touch is actually at the end of your finger? Or that the object of sight is in such and such a direction from the eye. And these are pretty valid questions that I'd like to come back to at the end, to move on to another part. But let me just go to over to the other side. So the general kind of modern usage of these examples, as we've seen in that Wikipedia page, where it's all kind of in the mind, you know, it's the impression somebody makes on you. He's an impressive character, you know, he has an impressive mind, but all these things don't have any relation anymore to a material impression, right? Where this word is then being, if you like, extended for a more general use, which, if you like, obfuscates what its intended and original use was. And that's where we have to be very careful, because as we all know, the definitions of words and the meanings behind them is where we can be easily confused. Yeah. I think there's probably only one that when somebody tells me that she has an impressive figure, I'm still puzzling over that one. So I can definitely relate to the curvature there. Yeah. Sorry, that was just maybe a pretty pathetic joke, but. Yeah. So one of the problems that we also had, what I just said a minute ago, is that sensation and perception are generally thought about to be the same kind of thing. And we need to very carefully make a distinction between the two, right? And that if we don't attend to this distinction, then it is not really possible for you to have any real conception of how your senses work. Because if you confuse words like sensation and perception, then it's very easy to basically get confused as to what's being talked about, right? And one of the things that's very clear, you know, why this happens is that the sensation and perception both use the same mode of expression, and that's why we tend to think of them as one and the same thing. So both of the following sentences, like sensation, I feel a pain, or perception, I see a tree, both have an active verb and an object. So they both have the same grammatical structure within the sentence, yeah? But the main thing to note is that when we talk about perception, we're talking about an objective thing, something in the external world. And when we talk about a sensation, sorry, then we're talking about something that is actually subjective and in your mind, yeah? And I think that's a very important distinction that people need to make in when people tell them things, what is perceived or what is sensed, that we understand the difference between there, so that, you know, we all have that common understanding of what common sense means. Yeah. Now, this all might seem a bit theoretical, but at the same time, I just want to absolutely make sure that everybody, if we talk about perception, then we're basically implying that we have an object that is distinct from the act itself by which it is perceived. Yeah. So I can perceive something, but that is not the same thing as the object. You know, a tree is not the same thing as seeing. But when I talk about I feel a pain, then it's very actually difficult, because that's a very subjective experience in your mind. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you have any questions or any comments on that so far.
No. I mean, just to, you know, let people know where this is going. It's in regards to telling you that, you know, you can't trust your senses and your, you know, your common sense or any of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. People, you know, I've seen a few things on the web where people are trying to, you know, use the so-called common sense fallacy that, you know, optical illusions is something that because we have them, we can't trust our senses, you know. Yeah. And that argument from illusion or optical illusions is the most pathetic that you can actually take on board. Because if you understand how your mind works, then you know that's not the problem. The problems don't lie in your senses. Yeah, the problem lies in what the interpretation your mind makes of those senses and what you've been taught to believe. Yeah, and that's you know, I trust my senses implicitly. Without that, you know, lived life would not be possible. And so, you know, what I'm trying to say here is you quite rightly point out. These arguments from illusion, or when people say you can't trust your common sense, it's a lot of fucking bullshit. Yeah. If you couldn't do it, you'd be a dead man within a week. Yeah. And that's the main thing to bring across. Yeah. So I actually wanted to take a little strife now from this impressions on the retina to, you know, what is called visible signs. Yeah. And just to qualify this a little bit more, I've said often enough, and this is not from me, this is from Thomas Reid, one of the best philosophers of the time, if you ask me, that he basically showed that the geometry of visible space is something that has been completely ignored by mathematicians and physicists for thousands of years. Yeah, that there is a difference between what we visibly see and what we tangibly touch, and that there's two different kinds of geometries to describe those two different visual experiences that we have, yeah, and tangible experiences. And the main thing here, I think, is that the visible appearance of an object serves as a sign of the distance, magnitude, and figure of the tangible qualities of the body that you're seeing. So if I see an object, then yes, if I go up and touch it, I'll know its complete shape and form and its position. But if I'm only looking at it from a distance, it might appear to be something completely different, right? It might even have a different shape, the same way your table changes shape when you walk across the room, yeah? And this difference in visible appearance and tangible appearance, again, needs to be understood that it's caused by a material impression of light on your retina. It's a part of your constitution, and you actually need to understand how it works to be able to understand how the deception is possible. And the deception is possible because they don't talk about the geometry of visible space. I've said that, you know, quite a few times. I don't want to labor the point, but this geometry of visible space is where a lot of the obfuscation is hidden, and why a lot of mathematicians and physicists don't completely understand what they're actually doing. Because sometimes they're applying tangible geometry to something they should be applying visible geometry to, yeah, or the other way around. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes with perspective. When people talk about perspective, you know, on you go, sorry.
So, like, you know, circles in the sky. I see circles in the sky, therefore they're this, that, and the other. You know, well, have you touched, have you moved around them? Have you got the whole form of the thing? No, you don't. So why are you making stories up based on your just your visual observation? You know.
Yep, exactly. And if you don't even know how your visual observation is to be properly described, right, whether in terms of a geometrical model or whether you're just taking in the kind of mantra of linear perspective, yeah, which has been so dumbed down, right, it's incredible, yeah, so that people don't understand exactly what that perspective means, yeah. And that's where I always talk about natural perspective, because there's a whole science behind that, you know, is absolutely untapped, undiscovered, and needs to be you know, looked at by all kinds of different science and academia. Yeah. And maybe just to give you a little taste of that, you know, I'm just going to make a wee strive through some of the things that I'm working on. Yeah. And one of the important things to understand, for example, is the projection of the sphere, right, which is all over the place, right? In map making and astronomy and navigation, everybody talks about the projection of the sphere. And the one thing they don't talk about is the projection of the sphere when we're talking about your eye and the geometry of your visible space. Yeah, that's the one that's, you know, for whatever reason is completely ignored, even though it's apparent to everybody that visible stuff is different from tangible stuff. But there's no geometry to describe it. Yeah. There's never talked about. You won't find anything in any maths books and physics books. Believe me, I've looked, yeah, and you won't find anything to do with the visible geometry of how your eye works and the geometry of visible space. And that's one of the things that, you know, I've been working on. So if you like, my pet project to try and explain how that, because we don't know it, because we don't understand it, it's very easy for them to substitute it. Yeah. And again, they need the words. They need to bend the meanings of words to get away with it. And that's why, you know, it's very important to also look at the words and understand that whole, you know, how should I say, chain or link of information. Yeah. So, you know, if I was to look into, for example, the celestial sphere, there's basically two different things that when we look at the celestial sphere, it's basically an orthographic projection and a stereographic projection. And there's various, if you like, axioms or propositions that go along with the two. In the old days, they used to be called the analemma and the planisphere, which are the two kind of main ancient ways of projecting. Nowadays, they're called the orthographic one and the stereographic one. And orthographics is where they suppose that lines all come straight and parallel from distant objects, right? That's the one they like to use when they're talking about galaxies far, far away, yeah? when they talk about stereographic projection, it always depends on where the eye is situated. So this one is much more relevant to how the eye actually works. And it's also the one that allows people, for example, to make astrolabes and stuff like that, yeah? The same sphere and the same geometry is also used for the Earth, right? You'll see all these different projections like the Mercator one or the Lambert or the Gall-Peters maps. All these things are, you know, apparently describing the Earth and its curvature, which we know is a lot of fucking bullshit, yeah? And they're using the mathematics of the projection of the sphere to sell you basically that whole idea by twisting certain meanings and definitions of words so that the whole thing appears to mathematically make sense, but unfortunately it just doesn't jive with reality, right? Yeah. So, you know, and one of the things, you know, just to take an example out of perspective, what I'm working on is the definition of perspective in terms of latitude and longitude and altitude. Now, if, for example, perspective can be described in terms of latitude, longitude, and altitude, then it's basically showing that it's the same geometry that applies to the celestial sphere and the Earth sphere, and basically, you know, will hopefully show academia how they fucked up with those things, yeah? And how what they're actually doing is just, you know, playing around with mathematical definitions, but I'm being very specific about where they've gone wrong, yeah? So that it's clear. One thing that people maybe don't know is perspective is used in gnomonic projections. Fuck me, I always stumble over that word. Where basically the eye is supposed to be at the center of a sphere. And I'd like to come back to that because it's a very key point to the overall argument. And there are various other little propositions here that we don't need to go into. But it's actually used, the mathematics of perspective is used for dialing. And dialing, as everybody might know, is just a clock, yeah? So the clock you see, or the sundials that you see, are all basically based on a gnomonic projection, yeah? Using the mathematical rules of perspective is what basically makes clocks and sundials work, yeah? And funny that should somehow be connected to the eye and the fact that we can see the sun moving across the sky, right? And shadows on the Earth, you know. So, you know, this is maybe also relevant to the current discussion about the eclipse and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's not something many people know, that the mathematics of perspective is what basically defines how sundials and clocks work, yeah? So every time I see something online about linear perspective and they all talk about this one point converges into the distance, and the further away you go, the smaller it gets, that is so dumbed down, right, as to the real science of perspective, which was a huge science back in the 1700s, right? It was part of the curriculum. You had to know all the mathematics of perspective to be able to understand how the projections of the sphere functioned and how to use that for astronomical and earthly measurements, right? But still, nobody tells you that the whole thing has something to do with the eye, right? Never gets mentioned. Yeah, we all talk about perspective, but, you know, do we actually really understand what it means? Most people don't, and most mathematicians don't even look that far back. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to, you know, call attention to. Yeah. To make this all a little bit more, I was going to say tangible, but unfortunately everybody's just going to have to watch it, is maybe just to look once at this corridor scene, right? This is a typical scene that people would see in a corridor. And I'd just like to flip over to a GeoGebra diagram that I've done here. Now this is a setup that I've done that I'm basically mirroring what this eye would see as it looks down a corridor, right? And when an object gets further away from it, then this red object on the sphere here is basically what's happening on your retina. If you like, this ball is the visual space, your geometry of visual space. And surprise, surprise, it's spherical, right? It's the same mathematics that they use for the ball, for the celestial sphere, for astronomy, for navigation, for all these things. They use the same spherical geometry that I'm now using to model how the eye sees things, yeah? And in this case, how it sees things in a corridor when things go far and far away. I've set this up so that I can move it around. And you can basically see that all the points on this object here, on this quadrilateral, are leaving the top line of this red thing here on the ball, yeah? And my eye is basically at the center of this sphere, and this sphere is representing the visual space that I can see when I look at stuff, yeah? And, you know, I don't want to get into this in too much detail because there'll be videos coming up about it, hopefully explaining it. I just want to give people a sense of the overall, you know, research. But, you know, for example, if I was to put in here 2 different planes, or at least, yeah, hold on. So you'll see 2 different planes that I'm showing. These planes are planes that, I don't know if you can see this very well. So, but let me just move this thing up and down the corridor again, and you'll see that these planes, because I've chosen the wrong ones, are not moving. Hold on. Let me just put on the correct ones. Those were the 2 planes I meant to put on. Those 2 planes are the ones that cut through the sphere, i.e. make a great circle, and are the ones that are responsible for this horizontal, this vertical arc segment on the right, and the other plane is responsible for the vertical arc segment on the left. And when I move this up and down the corridor, then you'll see that these planes get closer together and those planes get wider apart. Now, when people talk about perspective, they're always talking about how lines converge and how planes converge, yeah? That's what's happening. The thing is, it's happening inside your eye, yeah? And not out in the real world, yeah? Nothing is actually, you know, taking a dive to the horizon, right? The clouds are at the same altitude. What's happening is that these planes are getting closer together in your eye, or if I was to take the top and bottom of that visible figure, then you'll see that basically, let me just turn this around a little bit, maybe see it better. If I move this back and forward, then you can see these planes are getting further apart, or they're getting closer, further apart now, or they're getting closer together when I move further away, yeah? And that's the things that, if you want to understand perspective, you have to look at. It's the way planes cut through the spherical geometry of visible space, of your eye, if you like, or what your eye sees, and how these planes basically make great circles. And it's by measurement of great circles that we can measure actually the size and relation of objects. So if I put this far away, then the object on my eye, if I were to zoom into this thing, more or less looks completely straight, yeah? Because if I'm at the center of the sphere and I'm looking directly at something, then I don't see the outward curviness of anything, yeah? All I see is a straight line, yeah? So that objects appear to be rectilinear, even though the geometry of visible space is spherical. And that's, you know, a very important point for people to note. And again, we'll be doing more information on that to make sure that people, or hopefully people, can understand it, and to get academia looking into it, yeah? So there's a couple of mathematical papers I want to publish, and a lot of videos that I want to make sure can be understood by next to anybody, and so that we can, I don't know, trying to advance this whole conversation that people can see where they've been duped, yeah? Or where the problems lie, at least in the definitions of these axioms and first principles. Maybe just one thing left before I close up. If I go very close to an object, then that's when things do start to appear curved. If I've got something right up in front of my face, you can prove this to yourself, people, yeah? Then things will start to look more and more curved the closer these things are to your face, right? If you walk through a door and you attend to the top left, the top corners of a door, you will see that the angles are no longer 90 degrees. They're actually getting bigger, the same way they are here on the sphere here. They're getting bigger. I don't know if I hope you can see my mouse, but that little corner there is actually going to be over 90 degrees and not the 90 degrees of the tangible object. Walk through any door and attend just before you go through the door to what's happening round about you, and you won't see 90-degree angles anymore. You'll see them bigger than 90 degrees. And those are the kinds of, I don't know, self-evident truths, universal things that I think everybody can see and convince themselves that the geometry of visible space is in fact spherical. It's following this model, and everything else follows from that. The good thing is that if we then start to just redefine the words and the meanings of the words, then none of the maths needs to change, yeah? It's just a different outlook, a different view of the things that we're seeing, yeah, so that the definitions and the meanings of the words that we use in mathematics will actually then show us exactly how reality works. So the maths doesn't need to be thrown away, the physics doesn't need to be thrown away. It actually works just for us on a flat level plane if you can see that the geometry of visible space has been ignored. Yeah, that's at least my opinion and the result of my research and what I'm going to be putting out in peer papers. Even though I hate the word peer, important for me is that I have the peers of all the people in this platform looking at it with a common sense, saying, Gavin, yeah, I understand what you mean. Gavin, yeah, I can go away and observe it myself. I might not understand the mathematics, but I know where you're coming from. And, as far as the mathematics are concerned, I'm going to publish a paper that hopefully mathematicians can look at, but they're not as important to me as the peer review of the common man with common sense. Yeah. So anyway, I've spoken a lot. I've covered a lot of things, but I think my main point was just to show how words are so important and meanings and definitions, and how this goes into so many facets in all the discussions around the flat Earth. And we need to keep that discernment. We need to keep pointing out where the fallacies are, where the meanings are still confused, and where we need to agree on them. And only then will we hopefully get back to what I hope is the important point, namely that we can actually come back to discussing things together. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's a lot more, but I don't want to go into too much detail at the moment because I want to give you a chance to talk again.
If people have heard enough of me talking, mate, I can only thank you for your work, mate. It really does make sense to me, and the visuals are great. You can see what you're putting across there, and it was obvious. You could see it in that there was a wee paragraph there. That these things, this understanding would be hugely important to like artists, people who are, painting landscapes or any type of, artistry. That's exactly how it's working.
Yep. As I say, once that comes out and hopefully gets studied by other people, and by that I mean anybody looking into perspective at the moment. There's a lot of good work out there, from a lot of people that we know that have been on this platform. I just think to take it to the next level, to get academia involved is what I'm trying to focus on, so that people will actually come and say, well, wait a minute, he's got a point here. We can't find propositions. We can't find anything about this. Why not? Yeah. It's right in front of our face every single day of the week, and yet nobody writes about it. Come on, yeah? It's a fucking elephant in the room, right? And then when they keep, when you see all this one-eyed symbolism that goes on and all the pish where they appear to be taking the piss out of us, yeah? And that will come back to the topic that we want to take the piss out of them, yeah? When I see all that, it makes even more sense that that's part of the game, yeah? Is to to hide it in plain sight, yeah, to mock us with certain things, and the key really is in the eye. If you like the curves in the eye, it's geometrically provable, it's experiential by everybody, and the focus needs to get right down to that, and in a real academic way as well. Biologists, physicists, mathematicians need to look at it and start to tell us, okay, yeah, where did we go wrong, yeah. And it'll be in the first principles and in the meanings of words. Yeah, that's where we'll find the failures or the faults. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent, mate. Well, thanks very much for your work. I know it must take a bit of time and effort, so it's much appreciated, man. I couldn't have that attention. It's not my expertise. It's not my avenue. So this is what I'm saying about other people bringing what they have to the table, and you're stepping up to the mark and you're offering that. I just hope that other people start coming to the table and looking at this,
Aye, well, it will be available to everybody, and I'll make the papers available, the GeoGebra diagrams available, because I'm not infallible, right? So, I don't want everybody to expect, oh, Gav's got it all sussed. No, he hasn't, yeah.
No.
He's made a big stab at it, yeah, and tried to collate the information so that we can sift through it and try and, really get to the nub of it, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot to be done still, yeah.
Yeah, because that's where it's lying. We know that reality is not curving away anywhere, we're not living on the ball. So, as you rightly pointed out, there's an understanding that has to be had in regards to the eye and how it's working and how we perceive things. So,
Yep.
That's great. It's great stuff, mate. You know, it'll take me a bit to get my head around it. I can get an overview and understand exactly what you're saying based on the diagrams, but you know, just as you say, you know, I'm never going to understand the mathematics of any of these things. So,
well, I think the main thing is everybody gets the big picture, so that we can all understand. Okay, right, we know where we've kind of gone wrong. It's a matter of working through the details, yeah. And you know, one man alone, I can't unravel 300 years, right? You know, non possible. So you know, there's a lot of other people that need to step up to the plate. I'm reaching out to academics as before, you know, old friends that I studied with, all kinds of things, so that you know, hopefully we can get a team of people, you know, looking at it and bringing it more to the table, and then you know, if that's what it takes for academia to take us seriously, you know, as sad as it fucking is, Dale, because you know what you're saying about the physical reality of the world and water, you know, you actually don't need much more than that. But if people still actually need some mathematics to convince themselves to look at it, then so be it. Yeah, I'll try and deliver. Yeah.
well, that's it. That's part of my realisation, and people need to get real about it. We need people like yourself, like me, like all the other people out there who can appeal in many different aspects, because it's going to take different triggers for people to get involved and actually start taking it seriously and having a look at it. You know, so it really is important that people like yourself keep at it.
No, absolutely. And it has to be a combination, as you've always said, you know, together with the practical, yeah? So there's no point in me, you know, looking into equations in my wee dark room, right, and theorizing. It has to always be tied to physical observations, experiments, and that's where, if you like, the academic and the common man need to work together, yeah? Or the professional. Common man always sounds a little bit like a detriment, but I don't mean it in that way at all, right? You know, people from all different kinds of professions, yeah? You know, from joiners, carpentry, plumbing, you know, all these people, you know, together with the understanding, hopefully, of what I'm saying here. If people can see that whole thing, then we can actually devise experiments, go out, prove them to ourselves, yeah, and move this thing forward. Because I'm fed up listening to all this shite that gets talked.
Tell me about it, mate. Tell us about it. So, I don't know, I mean, we'll open up. I mean, if there's anybody that's watching or anybody in the chat that's got any questions that they want to put to it, then by all means, crack on, you know. Or if you want to come in and if you get anything to say, then let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, just a moment, mate. Is the platform phone on? Because I've had a bit of advice. Somebody's going to dial in if you are opening up. So.
Yep. I'll just plug the charger in. Just bear with me a wee second. In fact, I'm going to need to just go and grab it. So just bear with me a wee minute, guys.
Okay, don't worry. Gav, as you know, my attention's distracted here. Did I catch you saying that there's going to be a presentation available and a PDF and stuff to go with that?
Yep. Yeah, we'll be
Excellent.
posting some videos on my channel pretty soon, yeah, and together with links to different papers as well, so that are slightly more academic or more mathematical, but some of them are just, you know, essays describing certain things, and you know, Glenn's been helping me a lot, you know, making it palatable for public consumption, yeah, and making sure that it's, you know, readable and understandable and not too highfalutin. So yep, we're looking to get some stuff out this weekend, but
right, excellent.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you wish for, and I hate making a promise online because people are going to keep holding me to it. But at the same time, it's good to put a bit of pressure on to actually get some stuff out. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, quite obviously, people are interested in taking some material away and considering it, because obviously for the most part people aren't in the same trade as yourself, and it takes a little bit longer, like Dale said, to
sure,
you know, work through the unfamiliar linguistics of it all. But yeah, I mean, and I noticed the mind map you had there, is that an expansion on the previous one or a different?
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of, I think about 20 mind maps now for all kinds of different subjects, but yeah, we'll make them available. So similar to the Socratic one that I think we did at the time, and
there's a few on channel, yeah. So because that format people really did appreciate. It seemed to be quite an easily digestible way of laying your thoughts out, right?
Yeah, it's quite good because you can kind of expand it all to fit on one page, and then you can see how the things sort of connect to each other. So, and it's kept fairly simple in terms of bullet points. It's not, you know, heavy reading or anything. So yeah, it's a good way. I mean, I like doing it. It helps me collect my thoughts to begin with, and then, you know, to expand on them. So
Cool. I'm getting asked for your channel in the chat, dude. But there's your content's going to start going up over the weekend, is it?
yeah, I should be posting something at the weekend, and hopefully then in succession fairly quickly, various different things. So yeah,
ideal. Well, I'll pre-link people to that, and they can be in anticipation towards the weekend. Then
yeah.
It's the same again, you know. If I'll mirror it here as well, Gav, if that's all right with you, and then
Absolutely.
I'll just start directing, you know, obviously the link straight to your channel so that people have got it. You know?
All right, no bother.
Cool. So the phone is.
Going to get something to eat. So sorry, something to drink. So back in a minute.
No bother, man. Just while we're here, there's a couple of messages have come in. Thanks very much for helping. It isn't about popularity, just about spreading the message. I'm actually quite a shy person, so don't really like to be centre of attention, but I feel that looking at the amount of money and effort that has gone into hiding the truth from the masses, the information that is hidden must be quite something. And that's Danny Flatman. But people, check out Danny's channel as well. It's called Flatman's. Cheers for that, Danny. And I'm the same. You know, that's why people like me could step up to the mark, because this is a topic that's an objective question. It's not about your personality and the focus on the personality and idol worship and, you know, celebrityism and these types of things. So no, you know, and it's clear to see the people who walk that walk and they're only interested in furthering the progress of the truth, and they're not interested in garnering people's attention for their own self-gratification. You know, I appreciate it, Danny. So cheers. Right. Hello.
Hello, Dale.
Yeah, speaking.
How you doing, mate? It's Ricky. Hey, how you doing?
How you doing, Ricky?
How you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, good man, good.
Yeah. Good, yeah. I just wanted you said I wanted to get my channel up running, just to give you a call and let you all know.
Right.
Yeah, channel's it's just under Ricky C at the minute, but I will change it to Ricky C Wake in the masses. So in a minute it's just Ricky C. I've got a couple of videos on there. I sent them to Marshall the other day. I don't know if you've had time to have a look at them. I know you're busy in that, so. But yeah, if anyone wants to check that out, you're putting a few more videos on there to do with water and stuff. So
excellent.
So check that out. Check that out when you got time. Another one as well, Dale. I just want to get your advice on it, mate, because I'm having a bit of an issue. I know you're not an agony aunt, but I just wanted to get your advice. I'm having issues with my family with those, mate. It's been a bit of a rocky time in a minute. They're not. They want me to stop doing what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, I don't know I really don't know what to do, mate. I just wanted to take your advice on it. It's like they were saying I'd stop what I'm doing and concentrate on them, or they're going to leave me. So
Well,
you know, it's hard for me to, you know, it's a bit upsetting, really.
That's a bit of a horrible situation to be put in, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there has to be a balance. Obviously, you know, I've got to prioritise. You know, I've got to look after the kids and do what's got to be done. As I say, I'm just in a position where my partner's supportive and she understands, you know, what I'm involved in.
Yeah, so she doesn't know, but she keeps saying to me, you know, you're never going to change. And I keep saying, well, you're going to have that attitude, but he's never going to change, you know.
Yeah.
And she just can't see. She can't see it, mate. You know, and it's difficult for me.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, these are the strains that come with this whole thing, mate. You know, it's a huge thing. So the only advice I would give is, you know, make sure that you're attending to your immediate family and things that have to be looked after, mate, and don't shift your priorities. You know, there's enough people involved in this, and people are stepping up to the mark. There's no the intensive need for anybody to have their full attention on it 24 hours a day. You know.
Yeah. It's just difficult as well, because she's saying to me, oh, you know, don't say nothing to people. I said, well, but that's the whole point of it. We're not going to wake up and change anything if we're not going to we're not going to inform everybody.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want me to do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's how hard it is for me to, you know, when we're out and people are talking about subjects that I know are complete and that's a lie, I can't step in and say because she doesn't want me to look, you know, look mad or crazy or whatever they, you know, how these people think you're looking for them, you know?
Yeah. Well, I would always say that's a fault on their part. You know, if you're concerned about what other people think about you, ridicule and these things, then you know you have to look at yourself and why you care about what other people are thinking and saying about you. You know, that's part of the problem, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Dale, thanks, mate. Love to talk to you again, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks very much for your advice and that.
Cheers,
But
Ricky.
yeah, I'll still keep the channel up. You know, I'll be doing it sort of more discreetly, putting videos on there. But yeah, if you want to check that out, I did send Marshall the links. So yeah,
Excellent.
I've only got time to check it out.
I'll check that
Thanks,
out.
Del.
I'll check that out in the morning, buddy. Cheers,
Yeah, thanks, Del. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Ricky.
Good
Cheers,
talking
bud.
to you, son.
Cheers, bud.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. So.
So if anybody has anything to add or any questions in regarding to what we've just discussed, that would be great. You know, I don't know if there are any. Oh. Hello.
Dale.
Yep.
Are you on the imaginary car?
Yes,
Dale.
speaking.
Oh, Dale, it's Tabby. It's Vinegar Strokes. Vinegar Strokes.
Oh, hi, how you?
How you doing? How you doing, son?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I can speak to you like that because you're Scottish, too.
Yeah. How are you?
Okay. Oh, I spoke to you on Sunday. Well, I thought I didn't make enough of an arse of myself on Sunday. Let's call this guy back up. Okay, you're going to say, where's your evidence the Earth is a level stationary plane? I'm not a flat Earth, it's level. I'm not flat. What is flat?
Well,
I cannot. Alright, I'm female, so I have no idea about math. Right? Just let that go. Ignore that. I have no idea about math. I cannot picture this thing we're on. It's flat. I can picture the globe. I can easily see the globe, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen that. I cannot picture
what it actually is.
I can't picture a flat earth. I'm trying to conjure up something. I've got nothing. I can conjure up a flat earth. Like some people say it's like a disc, but but I don't believe in space. I don't think, oh God.
No, well that's it.
I
I
should
mean,
have thought this out a bit better before I called you. I'm sorry.
well, it's hard for any. That's the point. You know, it's very easy for us to imagine or perceive a globe because we've had it drummed into us from a very young age. So, you know, that's the imprint that's in your mind. But I mean, why would you be trying to envisage what it actually is? That's my whole point. It's like, let's stop guessing and throwing you know, these ideas at each other, and let's just investigate it to find out what it actually is, which is the most important thing. You know.
What the hell is this thing?
Well, who knows?
No, I don't know. I'm not asking you personally. I'm just saying to myself. I've been questioning my sanity.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I used to think I knew everything. I was happier. I thought I knew. I was happier when I thought I knew everything. I was fun. And then it turned out I don't. Nobody knows anything about anything.
Yeah. Now, in regards to, you know, the actual reality that we're experiencing, no, there's not many people who do.
Well, how did this thing? Oh, right. Okay. Let's get what we can agree on. You, Del. You need to have a name. I need to call you something.
Yeah.
Call you Del.
Yeah.
Del. You're on this thing. You're not hanging on there by your teeth.
No.
You're the right way up, the same as the rest of us are on this. Even people in Australia, they're not hanging on by their teeth.
Yep.
They're still walking around the right. We're all, God, right. What are you trying to say, Tammy? Get your point. That's what people want to talk. We're all on this thing. As far as I can
Nope. Signal went. Disconnected. Somebody's messaged me asking me if I'm Jamie Brown's dad. Fucking cheeky. Not that old. So I don't know what's been happening in chat. Has anybody got anything to offer or add to any questions in regards to this? Hello. Yeah.
Still, it was me. It's not your fault.
Yep.
I thought. Do you know what I thought in my mind? I thought I've not ruined this guy's hangout enough. I thought I should hang up the phone and then call and then fuck her out of it.
So
no, it wasn't deliberate. It was.
So what is the point that you're actually making then? If you can get to it.
What the hell? What the hell is this thing?
Well, who knows?
Why are we here? Why are we here? Who put us here? What the hell is it? How long has it been here?
Yeah.
As long as dinosaurs, as longer as other people been here before us. Nah, I could go on the question till the end of it. That's the thing. No fucking answers there.
Well, none of us have. That's the whole point. We're all trying to arrive at that and find out exactly what it is, you know. But we can't think too far ahead.
People think I'm crazy for asking.
Well, you've got every right.
Just to say you've got. Just imagine you're like, some student somewhere, and you've got, I have the ultimate professor of astrophysics, and you say to him, why does this do that? And he goes, gravity.
Yep.
And you go, what is gravity? And they don't know. So they're going to have to defer to their own authority. Don't worry, I've already looked up the world's leading astrophysicist. The whole world, doesn't matter what shape it is, this is the best we've got in the world.
Yeah.
Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. So like, what does he say about gravity? What does he say? Nobody knows. We can say what it is, but nobody knows. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You believe in you let me translate it another way. Let me just lay this on the line for you. Just imagine I'm the baller. Just imagine I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm the ball earther. You're the flat earther. I'm trying to police. Got my police hat on now. I'm policing this is a ball earth, and you better believe this, gal. And you're listening right now. So here's what I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson. Got my police hat on, and I say, I believe in this thing. I've no idea what this thing is I believe in, but I believe in it, and you damn well better start saying you believe in it too.
Yeah.
Or people will think you're stupid.
Yep.
I am not worried. Neil. Roll back a bit. What are you saying, Neil? So you're saying to me, you believe in something. You believe in something. Okay, I can understand that. And then loads of religious people. You believe in something, but you have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
So, okay, you believe in something, and if I don't believe in this thing that you don't know what it is, if I don't believe in this thing that you don't know what it is too, everyone's going to laugh at me. I am not worried about sounding stupid next to that. I used to be, until I looked at it like that. It's all because of gravity, and then you have to say, what is gravity? And they're going to say, I have no idea what this thing is, but I believe in it, and you better believe in it too, or there's something wrong with you.
Yep.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult.
Well,
We all just believe, but it's not a cult.
well, it's the same as any other religion. You know, people with blind belief and faith and things that are unseen, that are not tangible. You know, it's absolutely, you know, it's no different. It's the exact same. And that's exactly what it is. It is a cult. You know?
I don't know. That's the thing. I used to believe that. Oh God, it sounds so stupid. I used to believe in science and the police system. But I used to believe that science had all the answers.
Yeah. Well, real science is great.
I really don't think science has all the answers.
No, they don't have all the answers, you know, but real science, and when it's applied properly is great for us. You know, that's the very reason why we're experiencing each other through these technologies that we're using right now, because it's based on actual substance, actual tangibles. You know, there's a separation comes in when it goes from the tangible substances to theoretical, hypothetical, fucking mystical energies and forces and imagination, and you know, so yeah, so well, that's it. Well, thanks for phoning in. You there? Oh, gone again.
Evening, Mo.
Hello?
How you doing, Meryl?
Yeah, good. Am I echoing there?
No, you're fine.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I thought a good thing to bring up would be rationalizing fear. So, like, when you get scared or confused, you can sort of lose your common sense a bit if you get caught up in it.
Yeah.
And sort of when you realize that you don't have all the answers, that can leave you feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then if the trust kicks in, like, okay, and then it's about getting your bearings, you get your feet back on the ground. So I think there's a positive thing to the fear. Like, the fear has a knock on. It doesn't have to be negative.
Yep.
It sort of challenges you to establish reality.
Yeah.
I just think these are all things to gain from this.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be an experience that comes with, you know, your foundations being rocked, you know, and because with this idea of, you know, certainty being pushed to us for all this time, you know, it can be a scary and emotional place for people to be in, you know, when they have to let go of that, you know, apparent certainty. Although it is a false certainty, you know, people still, you know, feel security from it. So, I mean, there is going to be a knock-on effect for that, you know, which has been witnessed and is testified by many people, you know, me included. You know,
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as you say, you know, it can be a catalyst. It can help. You can get your feet on the ground firmly and properly. You know, and you're in a much better position now. You know, you're not assuming and taking things for granted. You're actually discerning and starting to understand yourself and reality, you know, for what it actually is, rather than, you know, just blindly believing in stories and hearsay, you know, from external powers and sources. Yeah.
And I think we need to include ourselves in what's happening, because there is a good chance that the powers or rulers that be, like the ones who are deep in this, maybe they couldn't keep all these lies going anymore, guys.
Yep.
Like, they're big lies. And once you start looking, the cracks do show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, we definitely have a big part to play in this. And I think it's still early days for all this. That's what I keep realizing. As deep as it is for everybody, it's a transition. We're all going through it.
Yeah.
So keep reaching out and supporting and listening to each other, because that's how we get through this.
That's it. That's
So
it, mate.
mass respect to you.
Cheers, mate. Same to yourself.
Yeah, it's the morning here. That's why I'm not on camera, but I just wanted to chime in and say that.
Well, is your hair a mess? So you're not going to say your hair's a mess, for fuck's sake, Meryl. Your hair's always a mess.
I look like an arsehole.
Same old then.
Yeah, no big changes for me this side. Just letting you know that I'm not upside down.
Cool.
Hey, hi, Meryl.
G'day, Gav.
How are you?
I'm good, mate. I just caught the arse end of your presentation there, but I had a feeling you guys were on, so the intuition's kicking in.
Yeah, good point you make about the fear, huh? You know, I do think, you know, people are, first of all, maybe a little bit paralyzed And there's also a fear about what they can lose, especially the fear of coming out and discussing this topic. I still think is a big problem in academia, or people who have settled in their professional lives or have reputations at stake and things like that. So, I think you're quite right to point it out. But what I think, what I learned is it's actually a very enjoyable experience. Once you get past that initial shock, let's say, and you have your synthetic fever, then it's actually great fun to actually go out and rediscover things. As Dale said many a time, the explorer in us gets awakened, the childlike inquisitiveness comes back. You start to see things, and I must say I find it much more enjoyable than I've ever done. Trying to discover what this is about, even though it is a difficult fucking question.
Yeah, it's just that transition. Sorry, man, you go.
You can sort of lose touch with reality. Like if you just start watching TV and listening to the radio and all the noise. No offense to anybody, but there's so much to take in these days, and I think I was looking at the moon. This is the point. I was looking at the moon. It was a big full moon. It was just as it's sort of the sun set and it's like twilight. And I was just looking at it going, this is mind-boggling. You get used to it, but what the fuck is that thing? And it was beautiful. And I don't even know if it's real anymore. Sometimes I'm just standing here going, what's going on? This is amazing. But what's bloody going on?
Yeah, well, that's part of it we were discussing. We have, visuals and tangibles, and again, I always bring it back to you. I'm intrigued about these things as much as anybody, but right now, they're not going to answer the questions. They're not going to make the points. They're irrelevant until we can establish that they are actually tangible and we can touch them, measure them, go all the way around them. Experience every dimension of them, but right now all I know is that there's just stories out there.
Because it seems like they were showing off, like say NASA, it's like, oh, we'll just tell everybody we could go land on it to sort of show the magical powers. Like, look how magical we are. We can go land on the moon.
Yeah. And it works in a way that, if they can express themselves that way, they garner a lot of attention from people. And that's where the whole war is, it's about getting people's attentions. And if you're a trickster and you pull a big enough prank, you've then got, your audience, you've got people's attention. And you've lulled them into that false sense of security where they think you're, a great explorer and you're very, very clever people. And then once you have them in that trap, that's it. You can start feeding them any old bullshit you want,
Yeah, absolutely. And I entertain the thought more that the powers that be don't have a fucking clue what's going on either. Yeah, because if I really ever thought about it, then they're also just human beings like us, like sentient beings that are trying to make sense of the same reality. Now, obviously, you can go away and believe in demons and gods and all that kind of stuff, but at the moment, the only thing I can see is that I don't think the powers that be have any clue either. All they've done is found out a clever way to manipulate us, and pretend they know things that they don't, and pretend to have a control over things that they don't. It's very tenuous at best, right? The control they have over us, because it's just really words and how our minds are manipulated. But at the end of the day, I don't really think they know either. They've just found a nice way to be in a position of power and keep us all, whatever, feeding them. Yeah, feeding their egos and their money purses and stuff. Yeah,
they might just know enough, to have the upper hand over us, without actually knowing the full story or exactly the 100% of what's going on. There's also that aspect. Yeah, whether they done some exploration and they made some discoveries and that's given them the upper hand and they're protecting something. Then I can foresee that. But
yeah, me too. But not the question of construction or where we actually are and why we're here. I don't believe they've got that figured out. They might know just a little bit more about the shape of the place we're in, and have decided to keep us all in ignorance because it's better for their power structures, But I might be wrong. That would be.
Well, it's good to postulate any possibility, mate. It's always it's very easy just to slip into a mindset of thinking you know, and then boxing yourself in, you know, and making that your reality. And it's great to have always kind of blow the gates down and contemplate other possibilities, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, you would have to then postulate that they have some kind of supernatural powers that we don't, right? Which doesn't make them the same as me and you, right? But you know, I've never seen any one of these kind of people, you know, personally. Never touched them, never spoken to them, you know. So again, you know, maybe people have had different experiences, but I don't think it's one that is shared by all mankind, right, at all times. Because I think that is the definition of trying to find out a truth, right? It has to be experienceable by everybody. And it has to be irrespective of whatever time it's happening, right? Whether it's 1,000 years ago, now, or in 10 years, right?
Yep.
And if that can't happen, then I'm not quite sure I can classify it as a truth at all. Yeah.
Well, that's a great point. Somebody sent a video to me. I think it was on Facebook. Some globe disciple. Oh, look at this! They weighed the stars and the earth and the blah blah blah. Now, this character sent me a video. Oh, this experiment was done, you know, 200 years ago, and you go to a mountain and you get a piece of string and you hang the bit of lead from the piece of string and you watch it being attracted to the mountain. So in this video, you get this character fucking drawing it in the snow. And I'm going, I mean, is this really happening here? Is this really where people's minds go? Something happened 200 years ago and this guy's practical example is drawing it in the snow. I mean...
Yeah, it's...
So, and it's part of the showmanship, you know, you have to give people that impression that you're superhuman and you have supernatural powers and abilities, and, you know, and that's just part of manipulation, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just missed a call there to whoever that was.
The knowledge too, that's what's powerful. And if only a few people have the real deal, at some stage you've got to pass that information on to someone younger, and then they've got to find people that they can trust that knowledge with, that deep inner sanctum, that circle. That's their sphere. The sphere is the inner circle, and that fucking knowledge they've got, whatever that is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's knowledge that, you know, is generationally passed on to, you know, to keep it within the family or keep it within the prevalent power structures. So I can...
Tight knit.
Yeah,
it's a tight knit, very well guarded, protected, sacred almost. It's sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that makes it all the more an important quest. That's why I'm starting to think of it as the Holy Grail. I am. It's that important.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's people who are going, I mean, to keep the globe going, it shows you that there is a lot invested in it, and nobody can even picture what it even is. Like, you guys are right. Like, look, the way the eyes work, it handbrake on, stops you in your tracks. This, and mass respect, because this is what it does. It gets you thinking. It can reprogram you. This is fucking great. I don't care what anyone says. This is beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
It's challenging, but good on us for heed the call.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more and more heeding the call, I think, yeah. Seeing it for what it is, trying to bring themselves in with whatever capabilities they have. Huh? And, you know, I'll keep saying it again, you know, everybody's equal.
That's all we can do. And support each other in that.
Yep.
Yeah. Good on you, Gav.
Thanks, Mel.
Yeah. I'll jump out, eh? Take care.
Just going to answer this call. The phone's going here. Hello.
Hi, Gav. How are you doing?
How's it going?
How are you going? Just answering the phone. I just wanted to ask you an opportunity just to say to a lot of people that could be listening, may tune in, to places we were staying in, it's just no level, it's level. And there's no other way to describe that.
Yeah.
Spot on with the sea level. That's a natural. If you've been to the beach, as kids, you're just assuming that a straight line will just bend without your common senses agreeing with you.
Yeah.
It's very hard to take, mate. It's very hard to take. But as Gav, as Mary was saying there, to now be aware of our natural and nature surroundings is awesome.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing. And I just want to say, keep up the activism. Personally, I do that with people at work. They're getting a wee, they try and put me down.
Yeah.
Big time. But we're all standing on the same level ground, mate.
That's it.
And that is it, man. The curve will only come back.
Yep.
Because it's gone. It's
Yep.
crashed.
That's it.
Brilliant effort for the lotties, and I'm just going to cut short with that statement there, mate. Thank you very much. Good luck, boys.
Cheers, buddy. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy, man. So that's it. You see the people in many walks of life, and they walk about smart ass attitude, thinking they have that certainty, and anybody who's questioning it are bringing it into doubt. They've got these kind of inbuilt reactions, and I experienced it again today. But these people are unaware. They listen to media and these mantras that are thrown out there that, science is at work to it, and these conspiracy theorists and blah blah blah. But yeah, hang on, they're not aware of this part of it. Well, there's people who are clever and actually questioning reality and digging in and looking at it, and we're not just sitting here going, it's fucking flat, and let's have a fucking party. They just don't see that part of it. But it's an aspect that everybody has to deal with, and eventually for me it will turn. If people can just ride out the ridicule and the laughing, eventually it will turn, and you'll have your moment. It's coming.
Absolutely. I think the three main things, this destructing your belief systems, right? So, getting rid of and freeing your mind of the stuff that you haven't had first-hand observations of, yeah? Or any primary, sensations or impressions. Second is to have that active inquiry, to actually start yourself seeking to find answers, right? By any means possible that you have. And I think the last one, and just to bring the subject maybe towards that, is this ridicule, right? We need to point out the absurd. We need to point out the ridiculousness of the things, because that will help people be in a, how should I say, a more comfortable place instead of them being laughed at. Yeah. Then let's turn the tables and laugh at that. Yeah. And let's laugh really loudly. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
The message, and they're not alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And stop this sheepish, we need to hide because we're the outcasts, and we're going to receive the ridicule and the laughter at us. No, just turn it straight on them. Right. It's incredible to watch. There's a part, and I'll set it to public once we finish here. Well, there was a woman, I think it was her daughter or her grandkid, and the young kid, I think she was about 6 or 7. And I'm having this conversation with the adult, and we're discussing water, and she's saying, no. You can see shapes on the surface, and the wee kids piping in and going, well, you can't. And it's really great to see when they've not had that amount of indoctrination, the common sense, understanding, trusting their own ability to assess the world. It's actually there. It's just that people have gone that far down the road that they've built up this whole picture that's false, and it's really difficult for them to backtrack and let it go. Sorry, Gav, I'm just going to answer this number again.
Aye, bother.
Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hi, yes. I found this number on a dog collar.
On a what, sorry?
Yeah, so, well, I think I found your dog.
No, I think you've got the wrong number. Sorry, what's the dog?
Yes, well, there wasn't anything besides this number.
Well, no, I think you've got it wrong. I've not lost
This
it.
is your dog. This is the number that was on the dog's collar.
No, must be some mistake.
Oh my
You
God.
sure about that? That was a free dog.
I think you abandoned this dog.
No, certainly not. What kind of dog is it?
Abandoned this poor Labradoodle? Do you know how many Labradoodles are abandoned every year? Listen to me. You need to come get this dog.
Right.
Oh, how dare you play dumb with me? How dare you?
I'm not sure who you are, but you've got
You
the
know
wrong.
what? Tina is going to hear about this. You hear me?
Cool. Take it easy. Somebody obviously trolling, thinking it's funny.
It sounds like it.
It wasn't even funny.
Not really.
It was just a bit cringy.
From over the pond, it sounded too. Your
Aye.
dog can swim a long way.
That's some fucking walk I've been, you know.
Yeah. The dog will be knackered, eh?
Aye. How did it find its way over the big humpy water? Maybe it was chasing the stick. Maybe the stick reached the fucking curve and started to flow downhill, and the dogs just get caught up in the current. Yeah. So, well, I don't know if anybody's got anything else to add. I mean, that was pretty extensive there, Gav. So I'm just going to thank you again for your efforts, mate. You know, and I know
Well,
that
I managed to shut everybody's mind off completely now, have I?
Well, it's not going to be for everybody. I'm sure you're a realist. You obviously are a realist. You know that as well.
Yeah,
You know, I think there's certain avenues that people are just going to be quite happy to, you know, let others explore. And but I think it's so important that people try and understand these things and, you know, do their best to have a look at them. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think if everybody can just see that connection between words, meanings, definitions, yeah, and how things are manipulated in definitions and science, yeah, that's really important. And always just come back to the material substance, yeah, and focus on, you know, practical examples, experiments that you can do yourself. Yeah, judge for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of repeating ourselves here, but that's what people need to take away. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it has to be repetition, mate. You know, the truth doesn't go anywhere else. I mean, you know, it's not going to change from one week to the next. You know, it's unfortunately it's just the case. And believe me, I fucking know I'm tired of listening to myself. You know, like I fucking.
Yeah, but it's a good point you're making there, Chief. You know, it's not as if we can, you know, say anything else other than point the direction towards the truth. So it's going to be repetitive at the end of the day, but.
And we need to keep stepping up there to represent it. As I say, I always say, you know, there's a battle for people's attentions, you know, and for me, I'd like people's attention so that we can empower them and give them that knowledge back, where other people want their attention to keep them in ignorance and milk them for whatever they can, you know.
Yep.
So I think it's hugely important for us just to keep in there and keep pushing that message, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Dale, I've got a link request from Dodzor, who's been trying for a couple of weeks. I think the last time Gav was on, he was interested in coming in and having a chat. Have we got time for a guest now?
Well, if Gav, you get time to sit.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, good for another half hour anyway. Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, cool. Dodzor, your link's out, man.
Why, you know, that and repetition and, you know, no changing this and changing it up to ridicule. And I would encourage everybody else to start that, start laughing at the fucking thing. As you say, point out the obvious absurdities with it and just rip it, and don't be scared of it.
Yeah, me and my brother still have a laugh when we go to a party. We'll usually walk in wobbling, even though we haven't had a drink, just telling everybody that, oh, it's fucking really difficult the spin's massive today, It's usually a good opening conversation. You know?
We're hitting some turbulence here.
Yeah, all on to each other, like, whoa, you know. Yeah, just keep pointing out the absurdity of it, you know. And water is definitely the best one, you know. I mean, if you try to imagine how life would be if water stuck to the outside of objects, yeah, just imagine trying to drink, you know, or you know, anything that you had to do with water, you know, just, you know, absolute nonsense. Yeah, the images that then go through your head are just, you know, it's too funny. Yeah.
It's so simple though. It's that simple that it's hard for people to grasp, you know. I keep saying that to them. It's the best, most accurate measuring tool we have. And as I said at the beginning, you get these clowns who try their sophist tactics, you know, misrepresenting their actual claim and what, you know, what it is they're trying to push, and it's all just to give that, and you know, visual impression, you know, use that word again, in people's minds, so that they stop questioning and they just accept what the images are telling them, you know.
That's right. Just go straight into the things signified in their minds rather than, you know, actually, you know, discerning what actually is going on. They just jump to the same thing. It's what you, like you said about the kids, you know, that the kid isn't at that stage where they actually reason about things. They're still going through that process of seeing, touching, feeling, and trying to, if you like, make sense of the world. And when we get to a point where we think we've made sense of it, all we do is attach this thing in our mind to what we think is what we know and what's sensible, and we forget then how to interpret those things that we actually do experience, those visible signs or the tangible stuff. So you know, we just jump to conclusions, if you like, in our head, without recognizing anymore how we got them. And that seems to be a problem, well, not a problem in nature, but just the way nature is again, right? That when you get to that age, you do actually start to forget how you learned stuff, You know, if you were to try and imagine how you learnt a bike, then you might remember falling and scraping your bum, but that whole experience that you went through is very difficult, to recover, or to attend to. So, and that's what makes it really difficult. You know, once you get past a certain age, it seems that nature takes away that attention that you have to those things.
Or the education structure, you know, as I say, because it removes the practical aspects again. You know, learning a bike's all practical. You're using your senses. You know, you're using the actual substance, and you know, you're applying it. You go to school and there's a removal of actual substance.
Sorry, lads, am we on there? Am I live there? Yeah.
Yeah, how are you doing,
Can
Dodge?
you hear me there, Dal? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah! I'm after being thrown there. I only came on at the tail end of Gav there. It was about 55 minutes into it, and that was kind of the stuff I wanted to discuss with him the other time he was on, about this thing about going back through the trivium and the quadrivium and terminology, the way they use words, to subtly change a word so as we lose the meaning of it, and to go back to basics. All this stuff was known about hundreds of years ago, and you'd nearly have to go back to libraries that had all this stuff on the shelves for anybody that wanted to see it. You know, when they go back to the Middle Ages and they talk about when they first came up with perspective, that's another fucking spoof. We always knew it. You can see it in their architecture from going back how long. They had this stuff studied or sussed out with the eyeball and everything, the whole lot. And well, I know we have to kind of rediscover it ourselves, you know, because I remember the stuff in school, like, now I'm going back a long time, over 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And you can remember you done things tangibly in mechanical drawing. You had to go back and use the formula for finding a certain perspective. You know, if you wanted to go a certain distance, when the buildings were so far away, when you were looking down, you drew your angles down to meet to where your eye would see it. You know, that way you can see it. Everybody can sort of draw and sketch and draw a perspective, but it's always in a vague way. We don't understand the process, but we can kind of do it instinctively. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what the trivium and the quadrivium was about. We broke down that process in the mind, and we used what you would call terms of art, so as we would definitely know what we're all talking about. We didn't. It's like nowadays there's all these buzzwords where when you get these things called iPhones, and what do they call them? Memes. You use any old word that sounds like it to give it a buzzwordy sound. You know, we have words like uploading, downloading. What the fuck are we uploading and downloading? It sounds like someone is handing you a box and telling you to put it on the shelf. We're not using precise language. That's where grammar comes in first. It's grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Now, I'm a bit dubious about the word rhetoric, because if you break that down, what does that mean? See, every step that was there before, when this stuff was first known about and it was taught, and the bit I did get about what Gavin was saying at the end of it there, about the terminology and what he was describing, this thing about perspective actually describes our world in the three-dimensionality of our world. Do you know what I mean? You've got the X, Y, and Z axis, and everything comes from there with the eyeball. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're looking around, and this is what space is. You know, that's what space is. Space is just the distance between two solid objects that are apart from one another. That's all space is when they're talking about space. And a lot of this stuff, I'm trying to remember it from the time I was a child, when we were kind of given a basic overview of this system, of this process that the mind must go through to understand something. Without that fundamental, that it's the most basic thing you can teach a child. You know what I mean? How to relate to the world around them in a dimensional way, using dimensions. Do you know what I'm saying? You can build a world around you, and to try maybe encourage people to look into this first, because I hear a lot of arguments on about this subject. You know, people coming on and they're using all sorts of terminology, and it's all kind of vague. And what do they mean? The thing that pisses me off the most, and it's not because it's gravity. Gravity simply is an effect. We can call it uppy downy if it makes the flat earthers happier. You know what I mean? We can see it. We can see it. We know what happens. The problem is no one has an explanation. And if, say, like the likes of globe earthers come on and say, well, gravity proves it, it doesn't prove a ball. Why can't you have gravity on a plane? Even if we don't know what it is, we know what happens. Why can't you say, oh, well, gravity works on the plane as well, and shut them the fuck up, because they can't say it doesn't.
Yeah.
What I'm saying. Yeah. I'm at the saying a lot there. I thought I was going to miss Gav there. I wanted to talk about that stuff, but anyway, he was on talking about it. You know, I mean, I just got the end of it, and what happened was, I said, I better move to Studio 2. Studio 2 was the kitchen. The missus is watching the fucking soaps. But when I came out here, she had a fucking washing machine on. I was kind of, I can't murder her because who killed me dinner? But it was, and I think in it's only my an opinion, but I think we should try and stick to this kind of a subject, because we're saying now, or people are saying that, okay, we know we're lied to. I've always known we were being lied to anyway. I just didn't understand the depth of it. It's so fucking insidious. I mean, it's beyond belief.
Yep.
That when am I echoing there?
You just stopped.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone else. I have it muted here. But do you know what I'm saying? If we're trying to take the conversation, I'll slow down because we hear the echo. I'll try to take the conversation further. If we can stick to getting to people in this manner. Is there much of an echo there?
Dodds off. There's a horrendous really difficult to make out what's being said. Are you experiencing that, Gav? Is somebody else experiencing that?
No, I'm fine. I'm just going to turn my microphone.
Can you? Is that it now? Is that it now?
No, it's still going.
No,
I
I
can't
don't know
hear
where
any
that
echo.
came from because I'm muted.
Marshall, you experiencing?
I'm
What about
muted.
me?
Marshall, you experiencing?
I'm muted.
What about me when I speak?
Gav, you're okay. Everybody else.
Who's Vortex Puppy? Who's Vortex Puppy?
That's Gav. That's Gav.
Okay. Okay.
But you made some very good points there, man. Yes, you know, when specialised subject, people
You're
always
great.
look down the
Gav,
term.
you're going crazy. There's some other background noise coming in now as well.
Okay.
That's really
Wouldn't
bad.
be, the hangout mightn't be getting Hey,
Yeah.
can
Is it
you
still
hear me
there?
now? That it seems to be clear now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Try that, Gav.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
I
just-
forgot. I lost the point. No, mate. There is back. Go ahead, Gav. Anyway.
Yeah, I was just saying. I thought you made some very good points. You know, these terms of the arts. You know, when people wrote about specialised subjects, one of the first things they did was to define the meaning of the words that they used within their specialised subjects, so that it was clear what these meanings of those words were for people that, you know, weren't part of the subject matter. And that's something that hardly ever gets done anymore. So I think that's quite right to, you know, to try and pull the conversation back to that, to have those meanings that everybody understands. And you're also quite right about the perspective. You know, I mean, it was a huge science back in the days, yeah, and it's been all looked at through the Middle Ages, those dark ages where apparently nothing much happened. I think it's a lot of bullshit. You know, it would seem to me that a lot of the things that you know, the knowledge that we have, especially around grammar, logic, rhetoric, all that got very well worked out. You know, the trivium and the quadrivium during those times, and it stopped basically 1700s, 1800s, and nowadays it just doesn't get talked about. So people don't understand the workings of their own mind, and they don't understand certain aspects of language and of science, and that's the reason why they can pull the wool over our eyes, basically, right?
Yeah, it was. It says that there's a phrase. Now we're going to use the Bible here only as a metaphorical book, and that's all it was about. It's not literal, you know. But there's a thing in it there that says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Something like that. Now that's telling you straight to your fucking face. The words are putting images in your mind, and you're creating in your mind and not in reality, because it's the words that are forming your imagination that's doing it to you. It's the word. A lot of people I hear talking about oh, we need more imagination. Imagination is the fucking problem, because it's not based on. We're supposed to be like an observer. If you're watching it that way, then the world reveals itself to you through this process. Instead, what we're doing is we're giving these terms and vague meanings about stuff, and then we run with that and we create all sorts of stuff, like what you talk about here with the formal sciences, when you can manipulate them and tell lies, if you like, or create. It's like if I'm a carpenter or a cabinet maker, and you used to draw the stuff first. What do I need? And you draw. What does that man need? He might be some other kind of a tradesman, but he needs a desk or something that is corresponding to what he works with. So you have to investigate. You design it. You put it on paper. You take it back and you say, does this look all right? Blah blah blah. And then as you start to build it, as you go down through, you'll find the contradictions, things that don't work. You're taking it from the mind to the tangible. And that's how you find out what's going on, you know. It's like doctors years ago when they used to say the doctors designed a lot of their implements. They did and they didn't. They knew what they needed to do, but they went to a tool maker who could make the instrument. and he had to explain to him, and he would go away, draw, and say, does this look right? And eventually they would get to something that works. So this is the difference between, I don't know what you'd call a forethought and something tangible. It has to be based on reality before you can put it into practice. It has to mean something tangible. It's no use saying I can see fucking 150 gazillion light years away with this telescope. When you go and you look at the design of the telescope, which is a piece of glass, how far can it see? The way the lens is curved, when the way it's concaved and convex, will tell you the distance that it can magnify to, and that's all it can see. Do you know? But do you know what I'm saying? Whatever we're talking about must have a correspondence in reality, in the science we're talking about. It's what you'd be saying, Dale. It's about what you call it. What I forget that word. It has to be provable. It's the scientific principle. You know, it has to be verifiable. You know what I mean? So it has to have something tangible at the end of it. Do you know, like? And this is where I can't. That's why some of the arguments that we listen to on the internet over this thing, say, feel like fucking pulling me hair out. What are they talking about? Where are they getting these words from? What the fuck do they mean? Because you'd need a library full of dictionary to track down what you know. You say, did he say that, or did he mean this? Did he mean that? Did he mean this? It's like you go into court. You say a wrong word in court, they know exactly what every word in the legal system means. There's no ambiguity. We seem to operate on ambiguity. You know what I mean. You know how you feel. You know, and we use all these vagueness, and that is a fault of the education, because we've never been able to fully express ourselves, because we've never been given the process to deal with the outside world, the real world. You have a choice. You can either accept existence exists, or you can fucking contemplate your neighbor and imagine something. Two choices. And you're either on one side or the other. Now, some people you're just not going to be able to talk to. Do you understand? They just won't, or it's too hard. I mean, I used to get for years and years and years, I'm not on this subject, but assume they know stuff without, like, you go and in any walk of life, say talk about politics, and they assume they know what's going on with the economy, and they don't even know what the fucking word means. An economy just means to be thrifty with what you have. You know, that's all it means. But now we have experts talk about quantum this and quantum easing and quantum that. What in the name of Jesus is that? What are they talking about? Quantum easing. And a quantum just means an amount. But now we have in quantum mathematics, we have things that disappear and reappear and can spin backwards and forwards at the same time. And they're really serious when they say this. Nobody laughs when they say this. But there's no proof of anything. And
well, there'll be lots of people laughing soon, I hope.
What? It's just beyond belief, some of the stuff they come out with, you know. I'm looking now, they're talking about, this is going back a long time now, they're talking about 11 dimensions, you know, this bullshit. I'm trying to figure out, how do you figure there's 11 dimensions? How can you use 3 dimensions to tell you that there's 11? Which way do you go? Avoid that, subtract. How do you get it? But,
you have to disappear up to your own belly button.
Now that's kind of what I'd be fascinated. And I used to say it like it'd be on different things. It was before I got into this, or before I just realised the earth is fucking flat. I just never thought about it. It wasn't a big deal when I discovered it, because I mean, it just, you know, they lied about fucking everything, and I expect them to lie about everything, even when it looks like 99% of the truth. All you have to do is stick that vague thing in there. that misunderstanding, that assumption about something, they let you assume it. So now you're filled into it. So the truth over time, if you like, can go from 99% down to 90%, down to 70%. Just follow your formal, whatever it is that you've created, and until we're at the stage where we are now. And I don't know what these scientists and head academics, or academics, I was going to say, whatever I said there, but what the fuck they actually do in the colleges. What do they do? If they're talking about this stuff. Years ago, it used to be you had to learn a trade. Now you have to do software. You have to know how to answer the telephone to sell stuff to customers. All that stuff is gone.
Yeah.
I keep saying it to people for years. They deindustrialized Britain. They deindustrialized America. They're deindustrializing everything. And the technology that we do get from the Far East is these windmills, whatever the fuck they do. They're a waste of time. It takes so much energy to get them out of the ground. To do the little that they do, they get a few million kilowatts of power, whatever they get. Two petrol and diesel engines would give you the same fucking amount of stuff. So you have to dig more stuff out of the earth. You have to go through a more complicated process to get this stuff up. You can see how useful they are, but because of the amount of stuff they have to put up just to get a bit of power, they look like fucking trees growing on the landscape, where one or two engines would have gave you all that power. Now there's our foresight, but people believe it. That's how insane the fucking world is after getting in a very, very short time. Like, I mean, even here, we weren't what you would call an industrial country because they wouldn't allow us to be. It was too dangerous, especially back in the beginning of the 1800s. They just put the lid on it. But even here, you needed skills on the ground. Even if you hadn't got the factory, you needed people who could do that work. So it was all broken up. So there was a lot of people who had a lot of skills, and they must have had some kind of an education, because every tradesman needs to be able to measure stuff properly and know his material and know how he's going to approach it. So he's going to have some kind of a knowledge of it, how it actually works, before he can do anything. And we've lost all of that. Problem is, how do we get that back? And the only answer is through this education. It must be taught to children. Yeah. And I think those bold books that were written hundreds of years ago, if they're still around, we have to get to them, because they destroy the books. They told you in 1984, they destroy the books and they rewrite them. That's what they do. And there's a very good paragraph in now I read that book when I was about 12 or 14, and I knew since then that the whole fucking place is I knew I was in it. But we have to get that back. They told you in that book, and in a certain part of it, where O'Brien tells, what's his name, Winston, that it's whatever they want the reality to be. That's what it is. Their mathematicians are good enough for the job. They will make it work on paper. The sun is 1,000,000 miles, or it's 100 million miles away, or it's 1,000 miles. It's whatever we want it to be. Yeah. The stars are wherever we want them to be. That's basically what he said in the book. I'm not paraphrasing. I'm only paraphrasing. I'm not quoting it verbatim.
Yeah,
that's
I remember it well. Yeah.
I can tell you straight away that it's whatever we want it to be, because you know fuck all, and our mathematicians are brilliant.
Yeah.
But they're brilliant about nothing. And I think people have to contemplate all this and get back to those first principles, the process, you know, the way it works: grammar, logic, rhetoric, number, geometry. They call it music, but it's really frequency, and astronomy. And what it means is, you know, geometry is space, music is time in space, and astronomy is time in both, or space in both time and space, if you know what I mean. It's the two of them together. I'm losing my tongue, is tripping. But I had an awful lot to try and say. I was hoping I'd see it the other day, Gavin, but I know I've only a short time. I just want to get that out. I think people miss a lot of this in these conversations. We don't go back to first principles before we open our fucking mouth. You know what I mean? And don't define our terms. Don't do any of any of that stuff. It's just we hear people saying it. It looks right. Ah, well, you just jump in there, and then there's an awful lot of assuming goes on.
Yep.
You know, about people think they understand something when they don't, because they haven't got the fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's very important, and they've taken it out of schools. You know what I mean? They really have. They've done it slowly, but they've done it. They're moving very fast now. You know, the bullshit is ramping up.
Yeah, they're on the run.
So I don't know whether they're just the CNN post or I don't know. Like, I don't even know who they fucking are. I just know there's an awful lot of spoofers out there, and I could count myself in that growing up. I mean, I got to a stage in life where I was late teenager. I just gave up on it. I said, fuck it. And I lived to please myself. It didn't work. But caused more havoc than it should, you know. I wouldn't have been too nice of a person at times. You know, I'm sure we all have our own fucking stuff going on, but you get very cynical, in other words, about the world, you know. And it becomes the term we'd have here called May Fain, meaning myself, you know, selfish. And that's what you're doing because you're seeing everyone else acting like fucking idiots. But the truth was, everybody's under pressure because they're stealing everything out of us. Everything, the land, everything. You have to beg them for anything, social welfare, stuff like that. All that stuff that should have been free for us on the earth, they've taken it through words. That's the only fucking skill they have. When you see any of these rockets, or well, I won't say a rocket because people say outer space, but if you see any of this technology that they're using, these drones, all this fucking military stuff, basically they're fucking human beings that's making that stuff. But what does it take a man to know that he's making something that's going to kill men, women, and children? What's going on? Is that okay? Like, you know, is that fine? You know?
People need to take responsibility and start questioning what they're up to, you know?
Yeah, well, you see, there's law as well, because law is written, and there is a law that says you can't do that. And it's even in the legal system that you can't do it. They have a legal system. We have a law system. It's like what I was talking about, the real and the unreal. So and it's down the middle. And we have to define what side we're fucking on. And sometimes I think we should talk. I know Delta just talks about the flat and he just sticks to water. Fair enough. That's his farm, his platform. But connected with it, to Gav and that, to expand a bit so that we can get to the point where when you say to somebody, our water doesn't bend, or blah, 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 these people have not got the process in their mind to try and grasp that, the first thing. Do you know what I'm saying? I hope I'm not rabbiting on too fast.
I know that you know, but there's a huge other part that obviously, you know, that we're aware of and we're trying to work towards. You know, we bring this stuff up all the time. You know, how people process information, how they discern, and how they're thinking. So it's not just that, you know, oh, the water doesn't bend and it's a level earth. There's a whole aspect of this of how we ended up in this position and how we get out of it, you know, and how we reverse it. So I mean, you know, that's why we're here, man.
Yeah, no, I just felt like I'd get that out because I felt that it wasn't being said, but obviously I missed most of Gav's. I'll have to go back to the start of it because it looked very interesting. You went through the process of defining how the eye works. Now I've seen that eye symbolism, not in the Masonic way, if you know what I mean, but I have seen it in drawings about where there was pictures of how the eye works and sees perspective. I have seen it. I'm trying to remember when or where I did, but I have seen it. And I know it's all there, you know. And but Glav went through the process himself of going through. I'll have to go back and do that myself to realise it. To realise it. You know what I'm saying when I say realise? It's just a tangible thing of taking a pen and paper and whatever it is to take you to draw. Now it's too handy because we have CAD and all. We just tell it what we want, but we don't understand the process. So even if the thing is right, it's almost like a belief again. You don't understand it. So when you walk out without your computer or your card or your iPhone, you're fucked. How are you gonna see anything or understand anything? You must go through the process, and a child must go through the process of discovering that. It reveals itself to you if you take the right steps. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's not because of your super duper intelligence or anything like that.
No.
It's a simple process anyone can follow. And once they get it, even if they're slow or if it's this, that, and people will come to it different ways, can come to, Euclidean geometry and mathematics. Do you know I was trying to look up that stuff again, because that's the way it explains itself to you. And if you put the children through, people can come, because the subject is so vast. If you're interested in music, you still have to know about time. You still have to know about number. You have to know about different keys, different frequencies, harmonics. There's a whole thing in there. Whereas another child might like music, but they'd like something else. But they would still have to learn the same mathematics. Do you know what I mean? So you can get at the child through whatever the child's interest is. It's the same thing underneath. And once they learn that basic, it means they can switch down from subject to subject, because they know the fundamentals. Even if they're approaching a new subject, they can still use it.
Yeah.
It's not lost. You don't have to learn a whole new universe or whatever the stuff, It's very, very important, That's why I thought I'd say that,
Aye, nice one.
Yeah, really appreciate it that you've basically summarised a lot of the things we've been saying very succinctly, my man. So, and I think it's what you said about making sure that the children get it. I think that's the responsibility all parents now have, is to demand it, right? And to make sure that the child does it themselves, teaches it, shows them, so that we can stop this, because it's all over in one generation, right? I mean, we're the people now that can say we want to change it, and the kids of the future will not be able to be taken in by the bullshit that we get taken in by. So, it's all over in 10 years if we want it to be, yeah?
Yeah.
And this is the year that the realization happens, if you ask me.
Yep. What's up?
And how do you, I mean, I don't really talk to a lot of people anymore about it, because the only time I'd mention anything to somebody is when they're bringing up some point about paying car tax or some other fucking thing, levy that comes in about something, people around you. And I just tell them it's just a load of fucking bollocks. It's all lies. It's not, it's bullshit. Fucking bullshit. The whole thing, no matter what you look at, it's bullshit. But they keep pushing it. They never stop. It's not that I'm a psychologist or anything, but say, how did this fucking happen?
Well, it's self-perpetuating, isn't it? That's part of the problem, that the people themselves involved in it keep it going, right? I mean, everybody's guilty of that, or was guilty of it, or still is. So, we definitely need to look to ourselves to take over that responsibility, yeah?
Yep. Because I think in a lot of ways, everything that's going to have to be said about the flat earth subject, all the good stuff is out there anyway. People just only have to Google it and go back to whatever they want, Eric Dubay or anything like that, or any other ones. I mean, they're all valid once they're offering you points, but you have to understand perspectives that they're talking about. And so people would still need some kind of a grounding in geometry and stuff like that to make sure that what they're being told is the fucking truth.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because if you haven't got that, it's all hearsay.
That's it.
And I just heard Mag down points, but obviously Gavin must have been talking about it earlier, yeah. But sorry I missed that, but we'll go back over it later.
Yeah, cool. Well, cheers for coming on, Dodzor. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure having you on. You're welcome anytime, man. To see, we're just about to wrap up, so we kept it open so we could hear from you.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, we'll try and get on the next time Gav has a subject, or I don't know whether Gav has they have their own website, whatever group he's in, and maybe keep in touch with that. I don't know whether he has or not, but
Well,
was just
I'm always to be found here under like-minded people, so this is where I feel at home.
no, that's okay. Now there was some stuff. I won't keep you too long. There was some stuff that I had about the trivium and the quadrivium. And I'm gonna have to look. I think I have it on a hard drive. See, a lot of the computers I have are on the old Rex. You know, I just get them second hand. And the one upstairs is not working. But I think I downloaded stuff about the quadrivium or the trivium, quadrivium, and stuff like that about the process itself. The threefold process is called, and the way it's been kind of joked about it. You know, monkey see, monkey do, and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like a doctor, you know, a doctor, you see one do one and you teach one. It's always in 3 stages, yeah. And what was the one? Don't forget the one about the monkey now. I'm sure you've heard it. And it's a 3-stage process, and I'll try and dig it up and talk about it more, just so as people can get the idea, the concept of it into their head. And then before you start using stuff, you go through this process in the mind to eliminate contradictions as you get to the tangible thing you want to produce, anything you want to make, anything. But you must go through the process, you know, and everything follows this process. And it's been completely eradicated from the educational system.
We'll get that information back out there, man. If you've got stuff, let's share it with everybody, because I'd certainly be interested.
I'll have a look, you know. It's just that it's there from years ago, and it's kind of a shame, like, but and I'm not great on the techie side of stuff, you know. I'm brutal at these computers, but I can just do the basics. I'm not really interested into there's so many terms of fucking art in this computer business that you really don't know what you're doing. They can't explain it simply, so you can walk your way through the computer without having to know all these buzzwords. They couldn't give you an actual word that'll tell you what you're supposed to do next. It's, you know, do you know what I'm saying? It's completely confusing to me, anyway. But I'll leave it at that, lads. Great talking to you. So, well, great listening to me, because I was doing all the talking. Okay. We'll talk. Yeah.
Yeah, enjoyed that, man.
Anytime, man.
Right. Thanks for that, lads. Shall we?
Take care.
Just for calling, bud.
Right. Thanks. Take it easy. Bye. Bye.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers. Well, it's good we end. So appreciate those who are coming on. You know, it's always nice to hear people that are thinking about it and maybe doesn't know the whole story of the platform, but it's exactly what we've been pointing out and working towards, you know, regarding the trivium and how the mind works and how we discern and assess, you know, information and, you know, assessing reality and, you know, sticking to substance and tangibles, and, you know, so it's all there, and it's great that there's other people who see that and, you know, bringing it in, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's been like that since day one here on the platform, that it's, you know, and I mean, water is still the way to open the mind for people, to get them to take the next step. So we need to keep hammering that home. But yeah, it was great to hear that, you know, somebody else is, you know, coming to the same conclusions, looking at the same things, understanding what's been said, and hopefully will contribute with the knowledge that he has. So very positive ending.
Nice one. Well, hopefully, you know, we'll just keep at this. We'll kind of keep it as a midweek thing next Wednesday, and we'll keep hammering it out, mate. And as I say, anything that you're going to be sticking up, obviously I'll mirror it straight on here and direct people to you if that's what you're wanting, or whatever, mate. You know?
No bother. Right. We'll certainly keep it up Wednesdays. So, and hopefully other people can come and join as well. Take heart and bring their stuff to the table, because I'm always willing to learn new stuff.
Same here. That's it. That's what it's about. You know, share what we have with each other, and we can challenge each other and have progress and better understanding, you know.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Gav, pleasure as always.
Same here. Look after yourself. Thanks, Marshall. Thanks everybody in the chat and for listening.
Yeah, I'll mirror that. You know, same. Everybody that came on, everybody that phoned in, everybody in the chat, much appreciated. We'll be back Saturday, obviously, the open platform, if anybody's getting they want to bring up any topics. So, Gav, yourself, if you can make it as well, you know, you're welcome to join in on the Saturday. So,
Yep. Cheers, man. I'll try and manage.
Nice one.
Take care, eh?
Cheers. Cheers. Magumba, Jonah Worms, Marshall, everybody in the chat, much appreciated. As I say, I'm going to, as soon as I stop here, I'll set the wee bit of activism to public, and it'll be there for people to view it. Some different characters and some of the points, as Gav just said, using these things like water, but we're dealing with the general public. We have to have different avenues of trying to grab their attention and bring them in, and obviously there's much more work to be done and things to understand. So peace, everybody. Take it easy. Marshall Magumba, Jonah Worms, thanks very much. See you on Saturday. Take it easy.